Chapter 387, Xuanrong's Delegation. Chapter 387, Xuanrong's Delegation. At the crack of dawn in the imperial palace, the emperor sat dignified in his dragon throne. His servants at the side and the officials down below were split on two sides, giving a shallow bow. Prime Minister Zhuge Changfeng was head of policies while Marshal Duge Zhantian was in charge of the military. They all showed utmost respect. May your majesty lead a long and prosperous life. Present your petitions. A servant shouted, glancing at the men below. Duge Zhantian flicked his sleeve and came forth with a bow. Your majesty, I have worked hard in tracking down High Priest murderer for 10 days, yet have found nothing. I ask that your majesty give me more men to conduct a more thorough search on the houses. Granted. The emperor spoke. Duge Zhantian bowed and withdrew. Zhuge Changfeng snickered inside. The old marshal is quite serious in his search, dedicated to the monarch and nation. A shame he's too honest, unable to grasp the cloak and daggers in the court, and insists on carrying this matter on. Be as thorough as you like. Looking in the wrong direction will still give you nothing. Zhuge Changfeng stepped forward. Your majesty, I have a request. The imperial capital has been sealed for 10 days. Driving fear into the people and the clans. For the sake of peace, I ask that your majesty opens the gates. High priest case is yet to be solved, and you want to open the city? Is the prime minister so impatient because of his own matters, perhaps? Duge Zhantian snorted and glared. The emperor flicked his cold eyes on the prime minister, waiting for him to continue. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. High priest case is crucial. But so is the reputation of the empire. Your majesty, you may disregard people's livelihood, but you should care about the rumors traveling outside the state. Zhuge Changfeng turned serious and bowed, presenting his petition. Your majesty, the Xuanrong kingdom knows of your majesty's centennial jubilee, and its emperor has dispatched a delegation with a gift. Please grant it entry, your majesty. What? The emperor and Duge Zhantian screamed at the same time. Xuanrong has sent a delegation? Zhuge Changfeng nodded. This is an external affair. Letting the delegation see the imperial capital under lockdown will earn their ridicule. The emperor's brow shook. He glared at the slightly mocking look of Zhuge Changfeng, and hatred festered in his heart. Zhuge Changfeng has a response for everything. I didn't respond when he asked that I release the seal on the capital in the name of the people. So he used Xuanrong's delegation as an excuse. Won't agreeing now look like trying to salvage my name instead of looking out for the people? His vaulting ambition is more than clear. Though the emperor was unable to grasp Zhuge Changfeng's planning from his vague replies, Zhuge Changfeng presented the petition while the emperor paused and thought. Duge Zhantian intervened. Your majesty, Xuanrong and Tianyu have only ever expressed hostility, with numerous clashes each year. The delegation is sure to be part of some elaborate scheme. And with the imperial capital in troubled waters, is all the more reason we should block any outside interference. I beg your majesty to refuse them, lest we bring wolves in our midst. Old Marshal is mistaken. Because our two nations have been at odds in the past, we should use this chance to mend our relations and live in harmony. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head and reported with a sneer. In addition, they come bearing gifts. Slamming the door in their face will put Tianyu to shame. The Xuanrong will think of us as petty. It concerns His Majesty's prestige and Tianyu's name. How could you be so jumpy to lose all decorum when it counts? One official in red stepped forward with a bow. Prime Minister's words ring true. I second him. The emperor's brow rose at the Grand Secretariat. Another official shot forward. Prime Minister speaks wisdom. Please allow it, your majesty. Minister of War? Duge Zhantian's beard shook. All officials soon stepped up, kneeling and shouting. We all agree. Even the emperor gasped with an ashen face. He knew Zhuge Changfeng's power had a long reach, but not this long, to include both civil and military officials. The man left nothing to chance. Duge Zhantian was overwhelmed. Those loyal officials that followed the emperor around, all but him, were in Zhuge Changfeng's pocket. Be it civil or military, All the emperor was left with were a scarce few. Zhuge Changfeng held his head high. Your Majesty, this is a matter of great importance for the nation. We, loyal subjects to the flag, ask your Majesty to make a swift decision that I may reply to the Chuanrong Emperor at once. Humph, Prime Minister, why the rush? You have so much care for the Chuanrong. The last time I checked, you are our nation's Prime Minister. The Emperor said, looking at Zhuge Changfeng in mock and ridicule. All officials panicked. Sweating all over. The Emperor's accusation was heavy, treasonous even. He started off as a joke, but singled out Zhuge Changfeng, the Prime Minister, as the nation's traitor. Not even the Emperor could accuse someone without evidence. Especially the Prime Minister. It only went to show how enraged the Emperor was. Getting ahead of himself, Zhuge Changfeng took it in stride, even chuckled. Your Majesty, please don't joke. I'm under Tianyu's payroll, working in its best interests. Try to understand, Your Majesty, everything I do is for the Empire. Ha ha ha. Of course I understand the Prime Minister's toil. The Emperor forced out through gritted teeth and slammed a servant with the petition, shouting, as per Prime Minister's petition, I shall allow the Chuanrong's delegation into Tianyu. The lockdown on the imperial capital is lifted and the high priest case will be postponed until after my celebration. Your Majesty is wise. The officials bowed, to which the Emperor snorted, watching with clenched fists. Duge Zhantian cursed them inside for being treasonous dogs. Meanwhile, in the high priest's observatory, a 10-meter large golden compass placed at the top released a deep blue glow. A strange energy lingered over it, forcing it to move. Zhuo Fan and Yun Shuang witnessed this phenomenon in shock. Is this the Yun clan's heirloom, the 8th grade spiritual weapon, heaven-linking apparatus? Zhuo Fan was amazed. Yun Shuang nodded. By having the heaven-linking apparatus commune with the world, one can see what happens in the world. As I watched the stars last night, I saw the vile dragon converge his attention here. But that is only a rough estimate. Only through the heaven-linking apparatus can I see its precise focus and how it tangles with the other faction's fates. So that's how it is. Zhuo Fan nodded and looked at her in earnest. You do what you do best, and I'll be the lookout. Yun Shuang giggled, rolling her eyes. This is the home of Yun clan. Having a lookout is like saying we came here to steal from ourselves. You do have a point. Nevertheless, with every house having eyes and ears everywhere, I'll block them. Zhuo Fan scratched his head awkwardly, guarding the door looking at him. Yun Shuang recalled last night and blushed. Isn't all that bad. At least not to his people, or they wouldn't hold a birthday party for him. This recall also brought her unmistakably to the moment when she threw himself in his bed, like a birthday present. And there she went again, blushing harder, shaking her head to get rid of those thoughts. Yun Shuang focused. Her eyes turned black, and she stared at the heaven-linking apparatus. The stars above transformed into 4 dragons, roaming above Tianyu and tearing at each other. The clearer it became, the greater the alarm on Yun Shuang's face. When she had last looked at the stars with her grandfather, the clash of the dragons resulted in Tianyu being left in a sorry state. As for the final winner, it was unclear. But the aftermath of this war would leave Tianyu filled with corpses and the people a wreck for decades to come. The greatest casualties Tianyu had ever seen in history. The heaven-communing apparatus stopped, and the stars resumed their rightful place. Zhuo Fan ran over, interested. It's over. He was stunned to see Yun Shuang crying and mournful. Shuanger, what's wrong? Did the wind get in your eye? Zhuo Fan blinked. Yun Shuang grabbed his wrist and pleaded, Steward Zhuo, I beg of you. You can ignore what happened to grandfather, but please, you must stop the bloodshed from happening. Only you can alter Tianyu's fate and free the people from suffering. Yun Shuang tightened her grip. Zhuo Fan met her gaze and nodded. I will do my best, but what? Yun Shuang was overjoyed that he had agreed. Zhuo Fan was still very much serious. I keep my private matters separate for business. Personal matters always come first. You are with me now, and I will help you in your troubles. But everything else will be done in passing. Yun Shuang was clueless. Zhuo Fan grinned. That's just my style. You'll know soon enough. Now, what did you see? Yun Shuang snapped out of it and said, While Dragon's focus is on the Luo clan. Fan raised an eyebrow. Luo clan had just received its newfound position and had not one darn relation with Chuanrong. Why is it after the Luo clan? Chapter 388, Ma Man. Chapter 388, Ma Man. Yun Shuang, guess what was going on in the head of his inside? That is what fate tells me. Vile Dragon will come down hard, but it also has an augmenting effect. The other three factions' fortune will be augmented, while only the Luo clan weakens. Chuanrong's coming to Tianyu bodes ill for the Luo clan. How can only the other three get enhanced? Fan paced around with a frown, but came out empty. This shouldn't be the case. I can understand if the two of them grow, but Crouching Dragon. The Vile Dragon comes with the Crouching Dragon in mind. So why would it result in the Luo clan suffering? Don't you find it odd? Yin Shuang nodded. An educated guess tells us that Chuanrong's first target is Qianyu's imperial family, the Crouching Dragon. But the heavens have shown the contrary. I can't make sense of it either. Yin Shuang sighed, her sight dazed while Fan's started shining. Yun Xuanji said that fate is fraught with death and life's paths, while different men make different choices, treading different walks. The three houses must have done something to make the Vile Dragon target Luo clan. What else could make the mighty Chuanrong Empire focus on the little old us? Fan mulled it over before asking, what about the Luo clan's fortune? I don't know. Yun Shuang shrugged. Luo clan has you at the helm. With you being out of heaven's control, I can only see the present and immediate situation, while the future is blocked. Fan sighed like the old saying goes, know yourself and the enemy, and you'd ever be victorious. Fan knew of his enemies getting tougher, while being in the dark about his own clan, making his own future actions uncertain. Being outside fate is not all it's cracked up to be. A deep breath and a permanent frown. That was Fan. What took priority was finding out the three houses' activities. With such a particularly large event in play, a master plan had to be brewing in a deep dark corner. Not cracking it yesterday would get him shafted. Fan's mood sank with every thought, yet he spared Yun Shuang a smile. Let's go back. Such a fortune to have you around at this time, and to find out about all this before it had been too late. It's fine. I'm doing it for my grandfather and the people. Yun Shuang smiled back, and the two left for the Luo clan, but 1,000 meters out, on a pavilion, two shadows kept their sights on them until they were gone. Our shadow recon team has never been so useless before. One snorted. We're so far away that we can't see nor hear sh*T. What's the point? It's not like we explicitly asked to tail Fan now. Is it? That freak has a freaky that has put even the captain on a sickbed. Any closer and he'd see us. Not even a miracle would save us then. The other side. Come on, let's check what they were after and perish. Maybe we'll find something. Now the great shadow guards have turned into garbage men. The shadow grumbled, but still followed the other, drifting over to perish as black smoke. While Fan's mind was on the shifting situation, he was out bumping into his allies, asking around for the house's movements. Yun Shuang peeked the sky over at the parish for any other changes now and then as well. The shadows tailing them, though, never once got anything useful. Fan was finding it more and more odd that every time he went to Drifting Flowers edifices, the people stammered each time he mentioned Chu Qingqing, thinking they may not necessarily be so forthcoming with the complete and whole truth as for the Yun clan's migration. The emperor posed the question as a mere courtesy, getting the response from Fan that they were in a safe place and out of the water well. Fan had all the reasons. He and Yun Xuanji became fast friends, so he wasn't pushing it to help the guy's family after his death. No, and he was still Emperor-certified best steward beneath heavens. His every action was in accordance with the Emperor's. It wouldn't have gone so smoothly with the Yun clan, otherwise the Emperor had to swallow hard to accept the damage he had done to himself. I just had to hail Fan so high and leave a weakness exposed. And now he had Chuanrong's delegation coming over with a present. Truly, when it rained it poured. This was exactly the forecast that had Fan's heart tense up. Are Chuanrong going to play out like the forecast? Are they the fourth power to push down on the Luo clan? Zhua Fan took out Ascending Jade, giving instructions to the elders. They needed overwhelming power and fast. 3 months came and went. The imperial capital was abuzz from the 1,000 detachments of soldiers at its gates in shining armor and impeccable discipline. Not to mention their mounts were not as insipid as war horses, but were spiritual beasts. The Grand Cavalry was riding on 3rd-level spiritual beasts, led by a few 5th-level spiritual beasts. The Chuanrong's delegation had arrived. Zhua Fan, come take a look at all the commotion. At the crack of dawn, a young scholar was very excitedly running towards the Luo clan. Zhua Fan and Luo Yunchang came out silently. He was no other than the cross-dressing Yongning snooping out of the palace as usual. With how the princess had gotten so close to the Luo clan, she dropped by every other day. First, it was seeing her dear foster sister as the official excuse, and then she shrugged all pretenses, brazenly going after Zhua Fan. Even Zhua Fan had to be tolerant to the princess and suffer her antics. Princess, what are you up to this time? I don't have the time, so go ahead with Yin Hai and young miss. Zhua Fan shrugged, scratching her cute button nose. Yongning snorted and stuck her head out. This is a once-in-100-years occasion. It's so kind of me to invite you to see the bustle, so the least you could do is thank me. See the bustle? More like you wanted to jump right in. Zhua Fan mocked, spinning on his heel back. Inside, Yongning flustered. Chuanrong's delegation has come. They're about to enter the city. It's a chance to see exotic cultures that you should never miss. What, Chuanrong? Zhua Fan stopped his tracks and turned right back out and kept on going. He wanted to check them out. How strong they were. How many had come to assess the threat to his house. Princess cried. Wait for me. Luo Yunchang was stunned, sensing the seriousness of the matter. She called Yin Hai, and they went together as well, and so the whole gang stepped out of the compound's gate. They had just taken a turn on Main Street when they bumped into a literal mob. You couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting something. They tried to find something besides heads, but nope, there were heads everywhere. The exotic foreigners were so in vogue right now. The whole capital was out to see them. Brother Zhua here. A shout turned Zhua Fan's head, coming from a building's 2nd floor. Long Xingyun waved for him to come sit with his allies. Zhua Fan nodded and took everyone over. Every one of his peers was there, not just his allies, even the likes of Hell Valley and Pill King Hall. But on account of all the bustle, they decided to keep the friction to a minimum, so much so that the arrival of Zhua Fan made them look anywhere but at him. With Zhua Fan being a moody beast, who knew what excuse he'd come up with to trash them? If the elders chose to stand clear, it went double for these disciples. Long Xingyun's group chuckled. This brother sure is feisty. A pain for the enemy and a shoulder to rely on for the allies. Brother Zhua, the entire 2nd floor is reserved for the house's disciples to get a clearer view of the Chuanrong's delegation. Long Xingyun invited them to sit. Xie Tianshang was stern, his hand never leaving the hilt of his sword. I wonder how many experts they have. Like you can expect anything else from a martial fanatic. Zhua Fan and Long Xingyun's eyes met, and they chuckled. After the esoteric debate, Xie Tianshang's mood had never changed. Chuanrong's delegation had yet to parade into town, so Zhua Fan looked around. He picked up on a sneaky figure and shouted, Yin Fu, you've come to see the excitement and won't even greet me. Yin Fu ducked out of sight on the 1st floor when he froze. With a forced smile and a scratch on his head, Steward Zhua, what a coincidence. His words got cut off by a prideful voice. Yin Fu, my master martial ant are almost here, and you didn't get us seats. Xiao Dandan came with Peony and Iris overseers when she noticed Zhua Fan's unnatural gaze and blushed, ducking her head. Brother Zhua, they had long since been an item. But you were so cooped up that you never noticed. Long Xingyun gossiped. With a snicker. Zhua Fan raised an eyebrow. You guys. Yin Fu was scared out of his mind, even losing his voice. Everyone knew Xiao Dandan was more than a little crazy for Zhua Fan. He ignored her every step. True, but that didn't mean anyone could just show up and take what a steward was. It was a no-brainer. What would happen now? Peony overseer saw the two shaking in their boots and snapped. What? Zhua Fan, we didn't want Dandan, and now you're going to ruin her life? That's just evil of you. Zhua Fan flicked his hand, his eyes roaming over the happy and shivering couple. Then he cracked up, slapping Yin Fu's back. Ha ha ha, my man. He was simply overjoyed at having thrown away one pesky baggage. Everyone's faces twitched and turned dark. Chapter 389, Rampant. Chapter 389, Rampant. Ugh. Yin Fu was having mixed feelings about this. He should be happy as a clam that Zhuo Fan wasn't here to deck him. But the more he thought about it, the less Zhuo Fan's word fit. As if I'm picking his trash, his damaged goods. Xiao Dandan had a sour taste in her mouth as well. Her burning heart crumbling from disappointment. What did Zhuo Fan mean by this? Did Xiao Dandan mean absolutely nothing to him, given any time of the day? He didn't take her seriously, labeling her as an extra baggage from the get-go. Her disciple, standing there all lonely, had Peony Overseer's temper explode to protect her, cursing, Zhuo Fan, what's that supposed to mean? You felt nothing for Dandan all this time? Are you dead inside? The outburst earned silent looks from everyone, then sighs. It's truly a mystery how a woman's mind operates. Iris Overseer pulled on Peony Overseer's clothes awkwardly while scolding her through transmission. When one man has eyes for Dandan, you curse. When another man ignores Dandan, you curse again. Just what do you want exactly? To have a death match for the lady's hand? That's... Words left Peony Overseer. Could Yin Fu versus Zhuo Fan even be called a death match? Who in this world can even beat that brat? She only found that Zhuo Fan's cold reply had cut her disciple too quickly. Her disciple had always carried a blazing torch for him for 7 years, and counting. If not for the matter with Qin Sheng, maybe. This is fine as well. Sighing, Peony Overseer consoled Xiao Dandan. Then signaled for Yin Fu to come with her to teach him proper manners. Yin Fu waited for Steward Zhuo's instructions, but the guy only flicked him away. Go. Your future mother-in-law is calling you. Better listen to her. You zip it. Peony Overseer snapped with a glare on him. Zhuo Fan struck the perfect bystander figure looking at the street. His heart, however, was doing somersaults. Xiao Dandan was a love-struck fool, always behind him like a lost puppy. Now that someone had taken that puppy in, he was over the moon. Yongning asked Luo Yinchang about the ins and outs of this drama, and sighed. But her gaze for Zhuo Fan was now a heavier one. Getting this sugar husband won't be easy. Roar. The rumbling sound announced the opening of the city gates to reveal fanged savage beasts strutting onward. In orderly fashion, the people cheered. Most of them had never even seen spiritual beasts. Least of all these fifth-level ones. The noisy second floor fell silent, with everyone focusing on the procession. 5 men and 1 woman were leading. On those fifth-level spiritual beasts, the crowd fell back at the imposing aura, avoiding their eyes. The ones behind had no problem seeing those foreigners perfectly, especially the girl of stunning beauty. She had a certain wild vibe the Tianyu women lacked, leaving the men enraptured and drooling, gulping. Long Xingyin squinted. A fair and virtuous lady, a great catch. Perv. The women around rolled their eyes at him. Chuanrong are famous for their beast-rearing skills. But it's my first time seeing the combined power of a man and beast. Xie Tianshang's sword was out of its sheath, flashing dangerously. His 2 eyes filled with thirst for battle, wishing nothing more than to jump down there and take the foreigners for a spin. Everyone shook their heads. Martial fanatic. Long Xingyun advised. This is a chance for our nations to shake hands. You can't go start a war, especially with that woman. Hey. Their talk went in one ear and out the other in Zhuo Fan's case. All his attention was focused on the riders. They had 3 profound heaven cultivators, 3 radiant stage cultivators, and 1,000 veteran cavalry in the bone tempering stage. They rode on 1,000 third-level spiritual beasts and 6 fifth-level spiritual beasts. Can this army threaten the Luo clan? Zhuo Fan sighed. Zhuo Fan, what are you looking at? The princess was piqued by his heavy gaze. At oddities. Zhuo Fan's eyes twitched. The princess was puzzled. What oddities? If I am looking, that means I clearly can't find them. Now, can I? I wouldn't be looking otherwise. You daft girl. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. The princess flushed red and glared in a pout roar. The sky shook under the noise, and the Chuanrong delegation stopped. Zhua Fan side watched one leader's mount roaring, and getting ready for attack in front of it was a 5-year-old child. Cry on the ground, a grizzled and thin old man charged out of the crowd and hugged the child. "Forgive me, the child is too young to understand running in front of you. I'll take him away." "It's fine, uncle." The woman smiled, but the jacked-up leader snickered over her. "Are all Tianyu's people without decorum? I am Chuanrong Empire's general, and for you, an ant, to bump into me is a gross act of disrespect. Can you bear the responsibility of a war between us? Cut the act. How could we start a war over this? We'd have been at war for ages by now otherwise." Zhua Fan mocked the princess, bobbed her head, so did the other young masters, looking at the buffed tough guy with contempt. Those words of his only worked on the common people. While the houses were too wise to fall for some cheap provocation, the old man was but a common man, however, paralyzed on the ground in fear of what he'd done. He had just condemned his fellow countrymen to a life of pain and suffering. He dropped to his knees and begged, "Spare U.S. Lord. I am at fault. Please don't aggravate the matter." The tough guy snickered, filled with contempt. But the woman frowned and glared. "Zhao Lahan, stop making a scene." "Young miss, I was only messing with Tianyu's pests. It won't change anything." The tough guy waved his hand, turning to the old man. "I can overlook this for Tianyu, out of the kindness of my heart. But my mount here has special taste, you see. Every time it bumps into someone, it feels the urge to swallow something. Or his bad mood might affect my own. So tell me, how will you settle this?" The old man paled, figuring the general wanted to feed his spiritual beast with the child, and he wanted the old man to do it too. But how could he? The woman snapped, "Zhao Lahan, having fun is one thing, but don't cross the line. Young miss, it's just a game. No harm, no foul." The tough guy chuckled, yet his vicious eyes never left the old man. Waiting to see him give the child to the spiritual beast bared its fangs and licked its maw with bloodshot eyes. "Humph! Absurd. They've come to our land and yet act all high and mighty." Xie Tianshang slapped the table, his sword half drawn. Long Xingyun advised, "Brother Xie, they were invited. We can't interfere, not with the officials having yet to appear. It will only invite trouble." The great noble houses, afraid of stirring trouble? The princess snapped, "I never saw you stop once from looking for trouble, yet now you've decided to sit back? Chickens. Zhua Fan, follow me as we teach them a lesson. Knock yourself out. I don't feel like it." Zhua Fan flicked his hand, "Like you said, the 7 houses have made looking for trouble practically a tradition. So you can handle it." "Oh, Xiao Dandan, weren't you once high-strung as well?" Xiao Dandan blushed with a lowered head. "I was more confused than angry then. Why bring it up? Yin Fu, you're no better either." Zhua Fan glanced at him. Yin Fu nodded with calm. "True. Every time I went out with my master, I'd be throwing my weight around. But since I've joined the Luo clan, with its tight rules, I never get the chance." "Well said. You'll show off again one day. Not to worry." Zhua Fan snapped his fingers and snickered. "See that, princess? We may look calm and kind on the surface, but there's a festering evil in our bones, like those guys below. Aren't you expecting too much, sending us mean guys into another mean guy's business?" The princess blushed in anger. "Then I'll go." Meanwhile, the old man was hugging the sobbing child tighter, under cold, hard pressure and indecision. It was then that a scoff came. "Chuanrong are guests and nothing more. Since when have they started acting as hosts?" Whoosh! Yin Shuang stood before the elder, and the child Zhua Fan sighed. He didn't give a hoot about others. While being unable to ignore his own people, his eyes glinting, Zhua Fan's mouth curled up in his trademark evil smile. Time to probe the Chuanrong for a bit. Chapter 390, A Dragon Can't Repress a Snake. Chapter 390, A Dragon Can't Repress a Snake. "Shuanger!" Yongning cried. The others looked on as well, stunned to see the Empire's holy maiden coming out in the people's defense. Then they turned eager after the high priest's death. The holy maiden had become the apple of the Empire's eye. They'd go as far as charging into the Chuanrong delegation if it meant defending her, something the Chuanrong were not privy to. evident by Zhao Lan's mockery. Missy, are you out for a quick death? Hasn't your emperor taught you how to receive guests? You'll now, but into another's problems, even Xuanrong's delegation. If you call yourselves guests, just act like one. I've never seen a guest as outrageous as you. Yun Shuang stood tall and bold. Zhao Lahan glared, then cackled. What a charmer you are. As for falling in with the customs here, it would depend on the host. I'm going to take those two for my mount as a snack. What's the host going to do about it? Zhao Lan shouted, and the beast roared in its pounce on the old man and child. No. Yin Shuang shot a palm of the beast's skull. Zhao Lan merely snickered and released his aura bang. Yun Shuang rebounded as if hitting a wall. Ha! A profound heaven girl dares to interfere? I wonder what gave you the gall. Zhao Lahan cackled. Yin Shuang's heart was beating frantically. Watching the old man and child becoming the spiritual beast's dinner about to be engulfed by those fangs, she teared up. Have mercy on my people, for they are suffering so. The old man and child closed their eyes, knowing their end was inescapable. Waiting for the jaws of death to close on them, the Xuanrong woman shouted, Zhao Lahan, stop this instant. Too little, too late. Zhao Lahan turned a deaf ear to her orders. Having gone drunk on power, the people sighed with a shake of their heads. This was the fate that awaited any common man's stumble upon the Xuanrong delegation. With it being a matter concerning the future relations between the two nations, how many people would dare to step in to solve this mess? Holy Maiden was one, albeit weak. Under everyone's gazes, the fangs inched closer and closer on their meal. The aura had the old man and child unable to even breathe. With a groan, the savage aura withdrew, and the spiritual beast halted mid-charge with its maw open. Only the stench kept coming. Zhao Lahan was shocked, and the audience was shocked, regaining their hope. Who was it? The old man and child were still waiting for death, but the beast was running late, making them crack open their eyes to watch the stunning spectacle. The savage beast's huge body was stopped by a red hand. What stood before them was a youth with white hair. They knew who he was. Everyone did after the fiasco outside the imperial palace. The savage no one in Tianyu messed with, Zhuofan, had arrived. How was that possible? The calm Xuanrong now cried out. Zhao Lahan's eyes flashed with a thirst for battle. Tianyu has someone capable of holding back a fifth-level spiritual beast with one hand. The agitated lads on the second floor rested easy now, sitting back to enjoy the show with one leg over the other. Once Zhuofan stepped up, everything became a foregone conclusion, and all thanks to Zhuofan's harsh, cruel, and heavy-handed lessons. Xie Tianshang was grumbling. What a hypocrite. He says he washes his hands of this matter, yet here, he is jumping right in. Ha ha ha, isn't it great though? He's the only one who dares to butt in such an affair. Brother Xie, don't mind it. Long Xingyun laughed. The others bobbed their heads in total agreement. It begged the question though, would the dragon come out on top, or the snake? Zhuofan paid no attention to the savage glints. He merely glanced at the old man and child. What are you looking at? Do you still want to get eaten? The old man darted away with the kid in his arms, expressing his gratitude. Thank you, Steward Zhua. I will never forget this. What arrogance! Zhao Lahan barked, holding the beast by the mane, causing it to roar as well. It thrashed around trying to escape from Zhuofan's grip. Zhuofan was using the Qilin arm, proving its efforts were in vain. Zhuofan snorted and flicked. To the audience's shock, the fifth-level spiritual beast slammed into the ground like a ton of bricks. Knocked out cold, Zhao Lahan took to the air, outraged. A mere flick knocked a fifth-level spiritual beast unconscious? Who is this guy? I've never heard of anyone like that in Tianyu. The Xuanrong delegation was just as stunned. Steward Zhuo's might is boundless. It started with a shout, and then it turned into a roar as more voices joined in, throwing their fists in the air. Steward Zhuo, Steward. The shouts came in waves, rumbling across the sky. The Xuanrong delegation looked around in shock and then focused at Zhuofan. A steward has such power? How come we've never heard of such an outrageous being in Tianyu? His fame is great as well. The people practically love him. Blast it! What is the intelligence department even doing? An expert like this that every common man knows about, yet we've got no wind of? They're all nothing but two-bit rejects. Ignoring it all, Zhuo Fan strode over to Yun Shuang. She had put on a wide smile, being relieved for the people's safety. At some point, her heart knew that as long as Zhuo Fan was around, everything will be a-okay. Zhuo Fan was the one who gave her such a sense of security. Steward Zhuo. Yoning squeezed in with Yin Fu through the crowd, running at them. She bowed. Forgive me, Steward Zhuo, for our tardiness in buying the goods you asked for. Please don't blame us. We are mere servants, nothing in your eyes, but we are hard-working. Someone blocked our path. Zhuo Fan noticed her wink and laughed. This girl hasn't been around me for long, yet she has developed quite the flair for the dramatic. The Chuanrong delegation was overwhelmed. Say what? That lady just now and the new kid are only errand boys? Everyone from Chuanrong felt a chill. Mommy, which house is bursting at the seams to have a profound heaven expert doing errands? Weren't profound heaven experts supposed to be clan elders in Tianyu? Gulping, the Chuanrong looked at them in fear. If a servant's requirements are at least the profound heaven stage, then what about their elders, clan head, and even venerables? More importantly, how many clans like these are there in Tianyu? They all knew Tianyu was a hidden den of monsters, but this was ridiculous. No, how is that hidden? Even the common man knows their outstanding blue blood. God damn you, Hulianchai. How the hell did you perform your investigation? The Chuanrong glared at the last rider on the 5th-level spiritual beasts. A thin, middle-aged man, the guy, was bewildered as well, lowering his head in shame. When did Tianyu whip out a fresh batch of clan members? Or are they bluffing? But a glance at Zhuo Fan had him sighing instead. Losing all nerve, Zhuo Fan was a 3rd layer of profound heaven expert, but a hand of his trashed a 5th-level spiritual beast. Not even Zhao Lahan could do that. For a freak like that to be a steward and the clan to have profound heaven experts as servants may not be such an oddity. The Chuanrong looked at Zhuo Fan's group with solemn gazes. With all their arrogance washed away, the younger generation on the 2nd floor felt their cheeks twitching in tandem. Zhuo Fan is the worst influence. He is pushing them deeper on the path of violence. Chapter 391, Tuoba Lufeng. Chapter 391, Tuoba Lufeng. You know you're wasting time, so why are you still here? If you run late and the young master isn't satisfied, I for one can't suffer the consequences, and you sure as hell can't either. Flicking his sleeve, Zhuo Fan strutted forth. He might as well go with the flow and take the play as far as it took him. The Chuanrong grew tense. This outrageous thing is afraid of his young master. This clan must have harsh rules, with experts in droves. So much so that the steward who has such godlike power isn't of high status in the clan and has to cater to the young lord's whims. Everyone knew the strong ones in the clan were revered, and even the clan head watched his tone around them, let alone the young master. From the sound of it, he isn't much in the clan. But what does that make his clan an abomination? Yongning and Yun Shuang shared a sneaky smile, and the people hid their joy. All of Tianyu knew of Zhuo Fan by now. A steward in name, yet the de facto leader of the Luo clan in the clan head's absence. Only Gooks would actually fall for his antics, and the Chuanrong were shaking in their boots with the intel and their numbers. They figured they'd boss Tianyu around. With no house or clan messing with them, reality proved otherwise, however. They'd just met a servant who was a profound heaven expert, while their steward was a godlike freak capable of doing anything. Case in point, didn't the steward wipe the floor with their general's mount? It was by this clan's grace that they weren't dead. Already the Chuanrong slumped, losing their haughty air. A handsome youth even cupped his hands. My subordinate was too impulsive, and I apologize for the trauma he caused. Thugs on the outside, yet pushovers at heart. His attitude earned the contempt of everyone. Be that as it may, having the delegation apologize for its transgressions was enough? No. Tell that to Zhuo Fan. He never once looked at them, treating them like air as he turned to Yin Shuang. What are you standing around for? Back to shopping. Ridiculous. Zhao Lahan's eyes spat fire. His fists tight. The princess snickered inside, yet not quite content with how subdued the drama was. She wanted it blown sky high and pointed at the Chuanrong. Steward Zhua, how are we to do that when they're blocking the road? Zhua Fan eyed her for a second, picking up on the glint in her look. Perfect timing. Let's get those guys to act and get a feel of the situation, shall we? Hold on while I deal with this. Turning a cold look to the Chuanrong, he walked over. The imperial capital's main street is for walking, not parading your pets. Anything on all four out. What did you say? Zhao Lahan snapped, his muscles tightening like steel, his body primed to explode any minute. The youth next to him turned glum. Zhua Fan was treading on thin ice. The Chuanrong were beast-rearing people. They'd lived all their lives among them. Asking them to throw their beasts out was like demanding them to give up their advantage and pride. The answer was an obvious no. The 8 houses people on the second floor snorted. Most of them had first-hand knowledge of Zhua Fan's style. He'd even steal candy from a baby. No low was beneath him. He'd run them off of all dignity and still act like the sore loser per Zhua Fan's him. Oh, he first taunt his victim, so he'd act in self-defense, leading them to strike first. The result? Of course, beating the crap out of you, all while standing on the moral high ground. Let's see if anyone can top that. How many innocent victims had fallen under Zhua Fan's malignant thumb, with nowhere to vent their loss, and were forced to suffer in silence. Everyone knew that. Zhua Fan's infamy was practically built on it. Exceptions being the Chuanrong, the new guys, the fresh meat. Falling for a hook, line and sinker, there wasn't a soul out here who wasn't snickering inside, waiting for the show to start. That's what you get for being obnoxious. Clueless as you are, you should keep your head down anywhere near Zhua Fan. The Chuanrong youth walked up to Zhua Fan, his heart unsettled. A deep breath helped a bit before he began. We are Chuanrong warriors. Our beasts never leave our side. We only know how to advance and never retreat. If you are capable, then you can make the spiritual beasts fall back. The people cried, "Holy moly!" Inside, Zhua Fan blinked once, then stared back, an evil grin playing at the corner of his mouth. That kid sure is something. Long Xing sighed. The rest agreed his words were impeccable. Neither an outright refusal nor taking it lying down, but he had shifted the issue on his Zhua Fan. To have him deal with it, everyone knew the youth probably had no clue what Zhua Fan was made of. Thus he chose the middle ground to neither sound threatening nor a coward, thinking that Zhua Fan was a man of importance. It was a perfect blend of tone and words to defend his self-respect, and thus he had dumped the issue on Zhua Fan's head. Failing to scare the beast back would put Zhua Fan on the spot. 2 birds with 1 stone. He had avoided the taunt and forced the other person to take action. Now it begged the question, who on earth could push back 1,000 spiritual beasts? Not even Chuanrong's best beastmaster could do it. The Chuanrong watched the youth with gratitude and gave Zhua Fan a wide grin. Long Xingyan gasped, inspecting the youth. Who is he? So young yet versed in politics and strength. Luo Yinhai nodded. He is leader material, with an air about him that could have only been gained in battle. Ha ha, brother, your eyes are getting sharper. For people stepped on the second floor, the 4 tigers of Tianyu. Looking at the standoff outside, Dugu Feng laughed. We've been waiting for the delegation to reach the Imperial Palace's gates, yet they just wouldn't show. Turns out the scamp cut them off. I just can't make sense of him. He's picking a fight with anyone. He isn't called Tianyu's #1 thorn for nothing. Ha ha ha. Big brother, could you please not talk like that? It wasn't Zhua Fan who started it this time. Luo Yinchang tried to salvage the situation. Dugu Feng smiled. Brother is so jumpy, but I didn't mean it as steward Zhua's responsibility. We had figured there'll be some hostilities with the Chuanrong. That's what happens when we battle each other for years and years. Their delegation is only here to showcase their superiority, something we planned for. Yet here they are, dead in their tracks, and saving us plenty of trouble too. The others understood. Their march to the Imperial Palace was to set up their powerful position, cut short by Zhua Fan's interference. It's a darn shame too. It was one thing to raise your tone against the 4 tigers of Tianyu, and a whole nother against Zhua Fan. By the way, brother, do you know that youth? Luo Yinhai asked. Dugu Feng sighed. Not just know him, but he's an old rival. He is the Chuanrong Empire's commander, Tuoba Tieshan's only son, Tuoba Lufeng. He's a young commander? Luo Yunhai exclaimed. I was wondering why I got a general's vibe from him. Du Gufeng nodded, his eyes fixed on the youth. Tuoba Lufeng is shrewd, brave, and adept in leading his men. A bit on the young side, but he has earned his place in the army. We four have tangled with him more times than I can count, and always came at a disadvantage. They say he will take his father's place, a prime candidate to be the next commander. Luo Yunhai's eyes trembled, and he ingrained the youth's image in his mind. The next Xuanrong Empire's commander meant their future enemy. Elder brother, what about the others? Luo Yunhai asked. Du Gufeng said, there are 8 wolf wardens under Xuanrong Empire's commander, of great mettle, and are unstoppable. 3 of them are currently present. Du Gufeng pointed at the tough guy, stirring trouble. He is second among the 8 wolf wardens, savage Wolf Jialan. His innate power and unmatched bravery paint him as someone able to tear apart a 5th-level spiritual beast. A fierce opponent, that one, there is obscure wolf, Hu Yinchai, in charge of intelligence and scouting, a hidden danger. Du Gufeng pointed at the thin figure. He isn't much to look at, but he is sure to be watching you. His operatives are sharp and capable. Luo Yunhai nodded. Du Gufeng turned to a masked man with only half his face visible. That is Xuanrong Empire's most famous archer, ranked 3rd in the 8 wolf wardens, the sky-piercing wolf, Zhibi. His heaven-shaking bow and cloud-nailing arrow are 6th-grade spiritual weapons. His shots are deadly, taking out the enemy generals. Even a marshal suffered at his hands. He is one opponent you can hardly guard against. Chapter 392, Thirst for Blood. Chapter 392, Thirst for Blood. You're telling me that Godfather, a 6th layer of Radiant Stage expert. Actually, Luo Yunhai widened his eyes. Du Gufeng nodded gravely. Yes, 8 wolf wardens are all tough, all Radiant Stage experts, all veterans. Never underestimate them on the field of battle. Everyone nodded, if not for the 4 tigers of Tianyu saying it, who were engaged in wars all year round. The 8 houses used would have never known that the Xuanrong had sent a mean bunch this time. Luo Yunhai turned to the last 2, his eyes never leaving the oldest person from his sight. Hair white, small yet sharp eyes, casting a veil of mystery over him. Elder brother, who is that? Du Gufeng mumbled. Xuanrong Empire's imperial tutor, Han Tianma. He is our prime minister, Zhuge, Chongfeng's equivalent. Does that mean the enemy has sent his best over? Everyone was startled. How could they send someone of such importance to Tianyu? Don't they fear an assassination? Du Gufeng shook his head. Morose. Xuanrong Empire is unlike ours, who have the 4 pillars to hold up the nation, yet each of them is filled with their own designs. Take Godfather and Zhuge Chongfeng, for example. Neither will accept the other. With years and years of constant fights at the border, they say Zhuge Chongfeng had planned to go to the Xuanrong Empire once for peace talks, but never carried it out. Do you know why? He feared the old marshal's betrayal. The chorus sounded. Du Gufeng nodded. Godfather isn't the type to do this, but it'll be impossible for the prime minister to believe Godfather completely. While Xuanrong Empire's commander, Tuoba Taizhan, allowed his son to come on this delegation because the imperial tutor is here to look after him. Why Han Tianma has come in the first place is because Tuoba Taizhan has 5 million troops stationed at the border, sending the delegation off. If any danger were to come upon the delegation, the army would march south and the empires would be tangled into a heavy war. This is the general's accord. Everyone felt a shiver run down their spine. The enemy emperor's left and right arm help each other while our 4 pillars are stuck in a conflict. If not for Tianyu's vast lands and many talents cropping up, as well as the 7 noble houses and the empire's 3 guardian sects, we'd have long since fallen. Everyone shook their heads. What about the babe? Long Xingyun licked his lips, enraptured as he was, pointing at the girl Du Gufeng deadpanned. She is Tuoba Tieshan's only daughter and Tuoba Liufeng's younger sister, Taobal Yener. Hailed as the #1 beauty in Xuanrong, an owner of impressive beast-rearing skills. But she is yet to show up on the battlefield and is of weak cultivation. There's nothing about her worth mentioning. Oh, Brother Dugu, what kind of man are you? How can you use strength to judge such a fine specimen? Stomping his feet in admiration, Long Xingyun said, "She and our women are different, but it's all in the style. I wonder if I can invite her over during her stay in Tianyu. A night in the warm candlelight, a beautiful entanglement, and the war of the nations may very well be a thing of the past." Perv! The women rolled their eyes, the men twitched and sighed. Dugu Feng said, "Brother Long, it's best that you forget about her. She is the commander's daughter for one, and although no one has seen her skills, she is no pushover. Don't test her and turn this into an even bigger issue. No biggie. Some flowers you can pick, some you can only admire. This young master has a self-esteem. Ha! The beauty below simply danced in the infatuated eyes of Long Xingyun. The others merely shrugged. Veiled Dragon Pavilion's young pavilion lord was a casual romantic, unlike the savage Zhuofan. He ought to know when to stop, no? Meanwhile, Zhuofan stared down Tuobo Lufeng and thought. Then he grinned. Telling you to step back is out of respect for you, faraway guests. Do you really want me to do it? Ah, if you must. Tuobo Lufeng grinned back, and the Chuanrong were looking at Zhuofan with mockery. The spiritual beasts under them were their lifetime companions, listening to nobody's orders but them. As for cowering them, ha, like that's gonna happen. These weren't your average beasts, mind you, but comrades in arms as they had shed blood and sweat on the battlefield together. Their wills were tougher than ever. It came as no surprise that no one believed Zhuofan was up to the task. Have it your way. Zhuofan snorted inside, took all the spiritual beasts in his eyes, and his grin spread wider and wider. Tuobo Liufeng's instincts kicked in, and his heart shuddered. As for the cause of the queasiness, he had no idea. Shove off. Zhuofan's eyes glinted azure along with his bark. It rang louder and louder in the spiritual beast's ears. It was then that a ripple swept across them. The still cheerful spiritual beasts froze, and their riders looked down stunned before the riders could even grab their mane. The beasts were howling away under the stunned gazes of everyone. The 1,000 spiritual beasts scampered off towards the city gates, running for their lives. Paying no heed to the riders' orders, something of incredible dread and terror consumed their minds, driving them insane and leaving them with only the instinct of fleeing. The bond between man and beast, forged in the thick of battle, through happiness and sadness, now laid broken. What the hell? Stop this instant. Tuobo Liufeng's mount was also frantic, but no matter what he said, it wouldn't listen, so he took to the sky, watching the 1,000 beasts on the ground stampeding for the gates, the 6 5th-level spiritual beasts included. It only took a second for them to clear the city. They left behind a bunch of rattled and sorry-ass riders, with an unlucky few trampled under the horde. Ending up with broken bones by the dozen, there was not a face out there in another state than bugged out and slack-jawed. Except, of course, Long Xingyun's gang on the 2nd floor, who only chuckled. They had been through this kind of thing back in the esoteric debate, where Zhuofan scared away the blood crocs with a glare. Using savage beasts in front of Zhuofan was like asking for a beat-down. Chuanrong Empire, founded on beastmasters, had met their nemesis in Zhuofan. The 6 people in the air faced this incredulous, inconceivable, and preposterous scene with blank minds. Tuobo Lufeng even looked at his sister. "Liener, you're the best at controlling beasts. Just what's going on here?" "It's how should I know?" Tuobo Liener soured for a second, then recalled something. He squinted at Zhuofan for a whole 15 minutes before crying. "It's you." Zhuofan turned towards her. "Someone from Chuanrong knows me." Zhuofan took a single look at her, and his heart started beating a mile a minute. She was that same girl he had saved back in Beast King Mountain, the one he had swindled out of the Shaping Spring she had stuck her claim on. Oh, so she's from the Chuanrong Empire. Perhaps he didn't care then to look closer, or it's been too long that he didn't spot her. When the Chuanrong got here, all he cared about was their level. He had no intention to care about some woman's looks unlike that loaf, Long Xingyun, who could tell on the spot how many moles a girl had. Tuobo Liener hadn't guessed either, since Zhuofan now had a thick mane of white hair. But the instant Zhuofan scared the beasts off, she was brought back to Beast King Mountain. On a closer look, she figured him out. The two stared off in silence and puzzlement. Who is he? What is he doing in the imperial capital? Whose house's steward is he? So the girl is a Chuanrong. But what was she doing on Beast King Mountain at the time of the esoteric debate, no less? Does it have something to do with the Chuanrong delegation's aim for coming here? Zhuo Fan pondered on the second floor. Luo Yunchang's face was hard. That rotten, stinking prick? He knows another lady. Sigh, another hottie falls into Brother Zhuo's clutches. I admit defeat. Long Xingyun sat back with hand behind his head. Just how many chicks does Brother Zhuo know anyway? For him to get close to even the Chuanrong Empire's girls, he is one Casanova. Lianer, do you know each other? Tuoba Lufeng asked. Taoba Lianer whispered. Brother, he is the one I had talked about, the weird one I came across. What? Tuoba Lufeng set his bloodthirsty eyes on Zhuo Fan. There's actually a man in this world with such absolute power over beasts. He is the greatest threat to us. He has to be put down. Chapter 393, Tianyu's Number 1 Thorn. Chapter 393, Tianyu's Number 1 Thorn. Ice-cold and unbridled killing intent shot forth. It stabbed into the people's hearts like biting winds in the coldest winter dam. Tuoba Lufeng is usually calm. Why then, the sudden thirst for blood? Dugu Feng grew nervous. Long Xingyan grinned. Why indeed? But even if they show their tough side again, Brother Zhuo is sure to nail them dead. What's there to worry about? That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Who here doesn't know about Zhuo Fan's temper? Irritated enough, those guys won't see tomorrow. If anything happens to them, what will Tuoba Tieshan's 5 million army at the border do? Dugu Feng shook his head. The rest stirred. Makes sense? Zhuo Fan merely curled an eyebrow in glee. Come on, make a move already. Zhao Lahan, Zhabi, Falcon formation. Would do it in one move. Tuoba Liufeng's eyes trembled watching Zhuo Fan. Coldly, the masked man nodded, and Zhao Lahan was exuberant. His flesh trembling in joy. Imperial tutor Han Tianmao wasn't quite in agreement. Lu Feng, we don't know what he can do or who's behind him. Attacking him rashly is thoughtless. Him being a threat is enough. He's got to go now, or our beast armies will suffer. Tuoba Lufeng set his jaw. We are in an altercation with him now. This is the best excuse to ice him. When we see Tianyu's emperor later, we'll just say that the guy got too confident of his blue blood in stopping us and got killed by a stray attack. Han Tianmao nodded after a long pause, but his heart was still unsettled from the moment he had laid eyes on Zhuo Fan. The imperial tutor felt a thorn in his heart. This was his intuition he had built over the decades, thinking of the last time this feeling came. It was when he met Zhuge Changfeng. Sigh, Tianyu has so many talents. Han Tianmao noticed the sharp look in Zhuo Fan's eyes and sighed attack. Zhao Lahan laughed, going after Zhuo Fan with bloodshot eyes, his face twisted and savage. Zhabi took out a glittering golden longbow, pulling the string like second nature as he aimed for Zhuo Fan, snickering. Zhuo Fan flicked his right hand in contempt. Stop. An aged voice towered over the commotion, and Zhuo Fan was found overshadowed by a figure pointing his long blade at the six. Tuoba Lufeng, Han Tianmao, what do you think you're doing? Rumble. Zhao Lahan paused at his arrival. Tuoba Lufeng sighed in the end, withdraw. Zhabi figured that was the case, and put away his bow. Tuoba Lufeng cupped his hands at the towering figure, expressing respect for once. Marshal Dugu, it's been ages. With the two nations tangled up in war for decades, the commanders had long since grown accustomed to one another, forming mutual respect. A hero valued another, regardless of which side they were on. Xuanrong's entire leadership present here showed their respect to the man called Dugu Zhantian at the arrival of the marshal. Everyone's side, knowing the fight was a bust. Zhao Lahan snorted, unwilling to let Zhuo Fan just walk away. Zhuo Fan couldn't care less. Oh, he did find it a darn shame as well, having lost the chance to probe them, although not a complete waste of time, as he did get a ballpark figure. Marshal Dugu, how can your people lack even common decency? We represent the Chuanrong Emperor in presenting your nation's majesty with a gift. Is this how a host acts? Scaring our mounts and harming our warriors? Taoba Lianer glared at Zhuo Fan while hurling her accusations. The way she figured was, with Dugu Zhantian's position in Tianyu, if it didn't give Zhuo Fan a heavy punishment, he'd at least give him something. Maybe a slap on the wrist. That would settle her current and past hatred. Nicely ashamed, Dugu Zhantien saw Zhuo Fan lollygagging behind, sloppy, bored and uninterested. The perfect picture of an innocent bystander. Sighing, the old man went in the air towards the six. The six were still very much respectful as Dugu Zhantien whispered. Imperial tutor, Tuoba Lufeng, seeing you faraway guests, I'll give you a good-natured suggestion. Forget about your rancor and drop this issue here, for your sake. You can't mess with that guy. The six were startled, looking at Zhuo Fan in shock. The Grand Marshal of Tianyu was dead serious, even advising them against pushing it. As the Chuanrong delegation, they represented their empire. No matter which noble or powerful figure appeared, everyone ought to show a modicum of decency to pave the way to the nation's peace talks, and Dugu Zhantien was a man above a sea of people in Tianyu, respected and admired. Who would dare put on a tough front in front of him? But the way he had worded his advice and his tone all pointed toward the fact that the kid downstairs was above his station. Who the hell is this guy? After one last look at Zhuo Fan, they snapped their evil glares behind them on obscure wolf. Just how do you gather intel when you miss such a glaring threat? Hu Lianshai was downcast too, returning an angry stare, then lowering his head in shame. Well, he did have a look at all of Tianyu's great men and houses. But who knew where this brat had popped out of, having such godlike power? Marshal Dugu, who is he? How come even you are reluctant to face him? Taobo Yin'er asked. The rest of them put on the same inquisitive expression as well. Dugu Zhantien sighed. I am not reluctant, but simply find him a pain, a thorn to avoid. The second prince stepped on his toes, and he leveled his home. You are the Chuanrong, and I fear that if anything happens to you, it will plunge our nation into a bitter war. I can't have that. Ha ha ha. You must be thinking I stopped you for his sake, right? Well, I was in fact helping you. Rumble. All of their minds were shell-shocked at the impact this news had. Dugu Zhantien had revealed two crucial pieces of info. Zhuo Fan's authority in Tianyu burst at the seams. To ignore the emperor and kick a prince around second was Zhuo Fan's power. Not even the six of them could stop him, but instead might end up with casualties and worsening the ties between nations. Why is it that we've never heard a word of such a valiant character? On cue, they glanced at Hu Lianshai again, but the guy wiggled his body away and avoided the stabbing gazes. He wished he could stuff his head in his pants from shame. How mortifying for an intelligence officer. Let me take you to the Imperial Palace. Now remember, keep your distance as much as possible. Dugu Zhantien sighed, then flew towards Zhuo Fan. Kid, I don't care what happened. Just please let this one go on my account. They are our guests. Zhuo Fan nodded. Fine, since the old marshal asked, I will. Please do pass this along. This is my turf, and not their backyard to jaywalk. Zhuo Fan was talking to Dugu Zhantien, sure, but he was so loud even deaf geezers could hear him, and before he forgot, he left the six with a middle finger as goodbye, making the six face boil in rage. Only then he sauntered off to Yun Shuang, taking her through the Chuanrong army like a champ. The men pranked by Zhuo Fan were wailing, and now that he was parading among them, their anger pushed them to the edge, but without the six orders, neither budged an inch. Forced to let Zhuo Fan's group swag their way across, he didn't leave them in the dust, but sure as hell left the Chuanrong army without an ounce of dignity. Awesome. Long Xingyin gave a thumbs up. Sticking close to Brother Zhuo is the best. Dugu Feng sighed. Thank God Godfather mediated before the matter escalated. This maverick demonic dragon was assumed to be the wolves' next meal, yet now they were the ones left wimping. Dugu Zhantien shook his head and led the outraged Xuanrong six to the Imperial Palace. Only this time, the six no longer had their cocky attitude, not after the bruises their pride took just a while back. Not in their dreams had they thought it humanly possible that in this trip to Tianyu, while they had barely crossed the city gates, they would be molded into shape. Forget about dignity. They had lost all self-respect. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Zhuge Changfeng and all the officials stood before the Imperial Palace's gates. They had waited and waited, until finally, by some miracle, the Chuanrong arrived. Except the six behind Dugu Zhantien, the rest looked like shuffling and dragging their feet. Some even had to be carried face twitching. The Minister of War whispered, Prime Minister, are they the Chuanrong? Why do they look like stragglers from a routed army? Zhuge Changfeng pondered and soon came to a conclusion with a smile. Haha, I believe they were indeed routed. I reckon they went head-to-head with Tianyu's #1 thorn. The officials were stunned, then snickered inside, this new generation. Chapter 394, Same Side. Chapter 394, Same Side. Zhuge Changfeng welcomed them. Ignoring their sorry states out of respect, he led them inside the imperial palace, where a feast was held along with the officials. With how the emperor's birthday had yet to come, the emperor wasn't present after the feast. The delegation was taken to their quarters. Outside Imperial Palace, they stayed silent all this time, a veiled contempt at Tianyu's lavish and exaggerated style. You had us coming all this way, and now you want us out? We didn't even see the emperor yet. That's a custom for you. Going in for a feast is having good manners. But you're not the big cheese here to live in the fancy and grand Imperial Palace. Xuanrong's 6 leaders entered a high-class tavern, while the soldiers were housed in garrisons guarded by Dugu Zhantian's army. He said guarding, but it wasn't much different from keeping an eye on them to curb any violent behavior on Xuanrong's part in the dead of night. A slim figure dodged the patrols and sneaked up to a lit-up house, knocking twice. "Brother, it's me." The door opened just a crack, and the figure slipped right in. Looking up, she was no other than Tauba. Lianer's 6 people were in a room, the leaders of the Chuanrong Empire's delegation, and one who had yet to reveal his face. Who is he? Tauba Lianer pointed at the robed person, Tuoba Lufeng, and the imperial tutor exchanged a smile when the hooded figure raised his head. He spoke in a familiar tone. Miss Lianer, we've been chatting all day at the feast, yet you've already forgotten me. SSS. Tauba Lianer glanced at the aged man and stuttered. Zhuge Changfeng? What are you? Lianer, don't make a fuss. Prime Minister Zhuge, her brother smiled, is on the same side as us. What? Tauba Lianer stared at Zhuge Changfeng for a good while, not quite able to wrap her head around that notion. The great leader of Tianyu's 4 pillars was on Xuanrong's side. Zhuge Changfeng smiled at her obvious confusion. Miss Lianer, I and your esteemed father, imperial tutor, and your emperor have been in secret contact for decades. Lianer blinked her big putty eyes, turning to her brother, only to find him nodding. Now, to believe her, she said, I finally get why you were so confident in this mission. You had Prime Minister Zhuge on the inside. He's the one you called the most reliable spy. Tuoba Lufeng merely grinned. He then said, Prime Minister, sir, has there been no changes to the plan? I get the feeling the situation in Tianyu has gone through upheaval. The young general is keen. It has indeed been so over these past few years. Our plan will just have to keep up with the times. Zhuge Changfeng nodded. Worry not, though. The stage has changed in our favor and not against it. How can you be so sure? Han Tianma said. Zhuge Changfeng had a confident smile. The original plan was to use the Centennial Jubilee as an excuse to bring high-ranked Xuanrong into the imperial capital. When the time is right, Commander Tuoba will put pressure on the borders, taking Dugu Zhantian away and leaving the playing field open for the Regent Estate to incite chaos in its conquest of the houses. With the Emperor's men busy with the mess, he'll have no one next to him, giving us the perfect opportunity to cut his head. The plan was 90% assured of success. Once the Emperor falls, the rest will follow. With no support, the veteran Dugu Zhantian will be beaten back as well. At this point, the Xuanrong army will have free rein to go across the country, with Tianyu all for the taking. The crucial point is for all these scenarios to happen at the same time. By the time the Empire's 3 guardian sects find out, it'll be too late. We'll just give them a little something to soothe them later, and Tianyu will be ours. Yes, that's the original plan. But what has changed? Han Tianma asked. Zhuge Changfeng's eyes flashed. This change came out of the blue to everyone. Tianyu no longer has 7 noble houses, rather 8. It is now in an even more tangled mess, with 3 factions in a deadlock. Even the ambitious Regent Estate finds this situation hard to overcome. How can Tuoba Lufeng was frantic? Zhuge Changfeng gave him a long look. Actually, you've already met with the 8th house today. Luo clan, led by that steward, Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan? The same one who blocked us? Everyone cried out. Tuoba Lufeng thirsted for blood. He can't be left alive. Since they are foiling our plan, then we will help Regent Estate in rooting them out. Young Master Tuoba, take it easy. Zhuge Changfeng threw a mocking smile. If Shuafan was such an easy target, he'd be dead ages ago. With all due respect, as you are now, facing Shuafan will end with you all getting annihilated. Each of them was shocked and looked at Zhuge Changfeng incredulously. Tauba Lianer snapped. Prime Minister Zhuge is trying to scare us. I've met with Shuafan before. He is strong, yes, but not invincible. Jalahin or Jabi. In fact, anyone here can easily kill him. With two against him, he is sure to breathe his last for good. Jalahin and Jabi swelled with pride. We ain't top Chuanrong warriors for nothing. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. Ha ha ha. Miss Lianer, when did you meet him? What was his cultivation? Around a year ago. He was a peak bone tempering cultivator then. Taubal Lianer recalled. Now that he's in the third layer of profound heaven stage, it proves he's incredible, but nothing we can't handle. Zhuge Changfeng sighed. Anything can change, given enough time. For a monster like Shuafan, a year is more than enough. Ha ha ha. Look beyond his low cultivation. Pitting your radiant stage experts against him is overconfidence and blind ambition. You're setting yourself up for failure. Jalahin and Jabi glowered as Zhuge Changfeng continued uncaringly and spoke with an exceedingly cold gaze. Not to mention, Tianyu's every faction is in a deadlock. Looks quiet from the outside, but a storm is brewing underneath the surface. It's the best time for our plan. And the best candidate to break the stalemate is none other than the dauntless Shuafan. You can't touch him before that, understand? Zhuge Changfeng's speech ended with a command, not something that Chuanrong's top dogs would be keen to readily accept. Only Han Tianma was pensive before nodding. You know the situation better than us. We will listen to the Prime Minister. Zhuge Changfeng nodded pleased. He chatted for a while longer, and then slipped away. His two elders were waiting outside with Zhuge Changfeng gone. Jalan was the first to act out. Imperial tutor, young master, are we just going to do what the old fox said? We have no choice. We are strangers in a strange land and shouldn't act on a whim. Han Tianma said, Obscure wolf, you have 3 days to find out about Tianyu's latest events. And this time, don't let the factions' relations and their actions escape your notice. Face red, Hu Lianchai bowed and left in the pitch-black night. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace's study, the Emperor was reading the reports when a reportee came. A black figure kneeled. Your Majesty, news has come that the Chuanrong delegation is housed. Also, the Prime Minister has made contact. The Emperor's beard shook and he grinned. Ha ha ha, it has finally begun. The Emperor took black and white pieces from a chess box beside him and threw them on the ground. The pieces are in play. All that's left is a checkmate. At the parish's observatory, Yun Shuang inspected the sky with a heaven-communing apparatus. Zhuafan stood watch with a frown, replaying today's events. That Xuanrong girl in particular kept coming back to him home. The heaven-communing apparatus stopped, and Yun Shuang looked winded, with faint sweat on her brow. How is it, Shuang? Any changes for the better? Zhuafan asked, shaking her head. Shuang was grave. Not only there are no changes for the better, but the crouching dragon looks more imposing, ready to take flight. Zhuafan knew it to be the sign of being on the brink of ruling this land. In other words, Chuanrong's arrival made the imperial family more powerful. That's terribly strange, unless... Zhuafan's eyes glinted. Yun Shuang begged. Stewardship, this sight has shown me that the land will be in even more chaos. The people will be in pain, suffering, and will be wretched. I beg of you, please save them. You alone can change this fate. Yin clan people are so strange. You've set aside your revenge for your kin and instead care for others. Zhuafan grinned. No worries, you are with me now. I will help you achieve your wish. No, it's for the people, Yin Shuang justified. Zhuafan teased. I'll do it for you, but don't feel like doing the same for the people. Now, who do you want me to do it for again? For me. Blushing, Yin Shuang lowered her head. Zhuafan laughed, his mind filled with constant thoughts. everyone is dead focused on the Luo clan. Chapter 395, Picking a Spot. Chapter 395, Picking a Spot. For 3 days, the Chuanrong delegation was confined to the garrisons. Lacking the emperor's direct summons, the guards looked dangerously close to wardens by now. They were bored out of their minds, waiting for Hu Lianchai to send back something, anything hum. With a ripple, a tall wall of the courtyard wiggled at one spot, followed by the sneaky Hu Lianchai finally making his appearance with no guard being any wiser. Tuoba Lufeng signaled them to get back in the room to discuss. Hu Lianchai, have you found out Tianyu's situation? Tuoba Lufeng asked. Hu Lianchai gave a heavy nod and saluted. Young master, Tianyu is just like we've learned from Prime Minister Zhuge, having experienced great change. All brought upon by the same man that stopped our march, Zhuge Fan. He's a hard man to deal with. Tuoba Lufeng raised an eyebrow, staring him in the eye and motioning to continue after taking a moment to organize his thought from his overexcited heart. Hu Lianchai stressed every word. Based on my investigation, there was no 8th noble house 8 years ago, but a nameless third-rate clan. But under Steward Zhuge's leadership, this clan struck like lightning, killing everyone in their path to reach the status of 8th noble house. He is a rare talent, with a sharp mind and boundless might. Hu Lianchai gave a systematic recount of the clan's history, sighing now and then, but all out of respect and fear. The narration took half a day. Everyone watched him blankly, their lips dry, unable to believe. Tuoba Lufeng, an imperial tutor, were downright plagued with worry in less than a decade. He had raised a third-rate clan into a house, even surpassing their 1,000-year-old legacy. This man was a true rarity. He wasn't just some guy with a gimmick, but an unheard-of genius in the truest sense of the word. Hu Lianchai, are you sure you aren't wrong? How could this have happened? How is he so strong? Zhao Lahan protested in his denial, rolling his eyes. Hu Lianchai was just as bitter. Do you think I want to believe this fairy tale? Am I that much of a fool? Everyone on the streets knows about this, down to the last bone. I am forced to believe it. That's why Zhuge Changfeng told us to stay clear of him. He's a serious threat. It's best we follow his advice for now. Han Tianmao said. Tuoba Lufeng squinted while pondering, but nodded in the end. He will become our end if we don't get rid of him. But with how few we are, it'll be hard if he possesses the skills they say he does. We need to think of the bigger picture. Tuoba Lufeng had to accept it no matter how much it pained him. Zhao Lahan was completely against it still. Didn't Tuoba Liner just say that me and Jabi are enough to waste him? This is absurd. The young commander had complete trust in the 8 wolf wardens. Any impossible mission would be completed once they stepped in. So why was it that against the Tianyu whelp, he had lost all confidence? Zhao Lahan grumbled inside, glancing at Jabi. From his icy look, he figured the guy was of the same mind. Now we know Tianyu's situation and need only to wait for the emperor's summons. Hu Lianchai, resume scouting and report anything you find, even rumors. The rest of you are dismissed. Understood. Tuoba Lufeng had them all withdraw. Hu Lianchai bowed as they all went their separate ways, and Hu Lianchai was all hush-hush and is sneaking out. Someone called out, Hu Lianchai, wait. Hu Lianchai turned to see Tuoba Liner bringing Zhao Lahan and Jabi. He bowed. Young miss, do you need me? Hu Lianchai, your stealth cultivation method is rare in this world. Can you also take us along? Liner looked at him with hope flashing in her eyes. Hu Lianchai frowned. Young miss, are you? Ha ha. To be perfectly honest, old pal, we want to get rid of that insufferable prick. Zhao Lahan shouted, his face twisted with malice. Hu Lianchai paled. You can't. Let's say the rumors about him are inflated, but that doesn't mean you can beat him. We still don't know what he did to reach such a high position, all by himself too. Moving without the imperial tutor and young master's consent will affect the plan. We can't take responsibility for that. I just can't take you. The 3 nodded, figuring as much. Still, Tuoba Liner continued. Then we won't kill him, and we'll just teach him a lesson. Hu Lianchai, you've heard it as well, how brother isn't confident in you 8 wolf wardens. We have to prove him wrong, to wash away this shame as Chuanrong warriors. What if the kid is as godlike as they say? Enough ifs. Rumors always tend to exaggerate. Well, have you seen someone that's strong around? Taking the attacks of two peak radiant stage experts at the third layer of profound heaven stage? That's inhuman. Taubal Yinner cut him off with a strong objection. Lahan, with your innate power, you've lived among spiritual beasts deep in the mountains until 20. Can you do it? Do you believe such a ridiculous thing actually took place on this earth? Lahan shook his head with a smile. Young miss, I don't mean to brag, but I have yet to find someone who can survive my strength. When I entered the Radiant Stage, I could handle a peak Radiant Stage body cultivator's attack, while two would be somewhat harder. This is why I do not give credence to what Hu Lianchai says about the prick's masterstroke. It is a fantasy, a made-up fairy tale. Yeah, I've met the guy, and even though he is fast at cultivation, that doesn't make him invincible. We're only going to expose the charlatan for who he is and showcase the divine might of Chuanrong. Taubal Yinner's face was filled with pride, not to mention that bastard was mean to me back in Beast King Mountain. He even stole my stuff, and I'm supposed to just let him get away with it? We, Chuanrong, are no pushovers. Hu Lianchai nodded. They were warriors who didn't know how to retreat. Of course, they'd be sure to vent their mistemper tantrum with no more preamble. Hu Lianchai nodded. All right, young miss, enter my beast-holding ring. I'll take you out. Eyes aglint, Taubal Yinner and the other two perked up in a flash of white. Hu Lianchai had them tucked away. Hu Lianchai's figure shimmered, and he soon blended in with nature, moving around like a heat wave. Meanwhile, in the Regent of Prosperity's compound's garden, Zhuofan was sipping green tea under a pavilion. In front of him were a handful of rocks scattered around on the table. Zhuofan was steadily looking at them. Steward Zhua, what's on your mind? A soft voice broke his reverie. Noticing Yin Shuang coming over the stones had names on them, to which Yin Shuang said, I see, Steward Zhua is brainstorming how to get out of this impasse. Yeah, the four factions, including Chuanrong, are now in a standoff. Zhuofan smiled, sipping his tea, and weighed a rock. Neither side wants the deadlock to persist, looking for a palooka so hard in the head that he'd smash this stalemate wide open. But who'd be willing to become the eye of the storm, the public enemy number one, whose fate is to be torn to shreds? Yin Shuang looked at him a loss. Scratching her head, Zhuofan smiled. I didn't want to do it, but Shuang, what I understood from your readings is that all these insidious players have one thing in common. They all want to make me the scapegoat. Such a fate is hard to change, even if I'm willing. Yun Shuang saw the look in his eyes and started to worry. Zhuofan laughed at her. Look, relax. Since I know heaven's direction, I'll just move against the grain. They want me to become the center of it all. That's fine by me. They'll just have to witness the second coming of Gu Santong. But unlike him, I'm not one to fall so easily. Hey, Zhuofan snickered. Yin Shuang sighed. She had yet to get used to seeing his evil grin, but felt at ease knowing Zhuofan had made up his mind. Yoning took this moment to make her presence noticed. In her fashionable and cross-gender, cross-cultural, cross-age, cross-dressing, scholarly getup, Shuanger, Zhuofan, to celebrate Imperial Father's centennial jubilee, the Imperial capital is holding a lantern festival. Let's all go. You sneaked out again? Zhuofan was in no mood, not interested. Yoning deflated and turned to Yin Shuang. As the good sister she was, Yin Shuang knew what Yoning was thinking. Steward Zhua, the imperial capital is in turmoil, and for two weak girls to go alone. Fine, fine. You're an asset I have to protect and keep close. Zhuofan waved to her and shook his head. The girls hid a sneaky smile. Chapter 396, Ambush at Lantern Festival. Chapter 396, Ambush at Lantern Festival. On the night of the Lantern Festival, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting someone. With their emperor's birthday fast approaching, the buildings were decorated with lanterns, turning the capital into a breathtaking scene. Many romantics and couples took full advantage of this rare occasion to get together and whisper sweet nothings to their better half. Then again, an exception was almost guaranteed to exist. Sticking out like a sore thumb was a guy with white hair, surrounded by three bells and at the admiration of the crowd. Buddy, you're one daring trailblazer on the righteous path of love. We, poor fellows, only date one on the night of Lantern Festival, while you've come out with three. I tip my hat to you, sir. The eerie looks came everywhere he went. Zhuo Fan's face was twitching looking at the girls with a sigh. Yongning wanted to come with Yin Shuang, but since Luo Yinchang overheard them, she just had to join. She even shot down anyone else who wanted to join them, lest they became a third wheel. Sister, please, isn't already a crowd with three girls in tow? Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes, hearing the bubbly girls giggle and chatter. All this time he was sighing and sighing. At some point, a sharp and heavy sound came, followed by a mighty pressure clearly focused on Zhuo Fan. Dodge. Zhuo Fan waved at the girls, sweeping them off their feet and sending them 100 meters away. Yongning ended up sputtering dust from the maltreatment. She slapped the ground, getting to her feet, and told him off. Zhuo Fan, what the hell is wrong with you? She was royally pissed. Here she was taking a guy on a night out and earning some brownie points, and the twit had sent her flying. That's no way to treat a friend, especially a princess. But noticing that Zhuo Fan was staring at the sky, she did as well and gassed. The other girls paled as well. Filled with worry for Zhuo Fan, a bludgeon, easily 10 meters in diameter, came smashing on Zhuo Fan's head. On the other end of the mace was Zhao Lahan. With bloodshot eyes and a malignant face, he wanted to flatten Zhuo Fan in one strike. Hey, you pompous cretin, weren't you godlike? Try this on for size. Zhao Lahan cackled inside. The average people participating in the lovely festival shivered all over and scurried for their lives. Where did that meteor come from? It'll ruin the celebration. The ever-cold Zhuo Fan flicked his Qilin arm, now shining red. Bam. Zhuo Fan smacked the bludgeon into the pavement, sending an earthquake that flattened anything in its path. Destroying the lanterns, the girls flew again from the shockwave. With blood coming from their mouths, finally recovering their wits after the fall, they found a dozens of meter-wide crater at the epicenter. The golden bludgeon stood there majestic, and Zhuo Fan was buried under it. Zhuo Fan. The girls' cries went unanswered. Zhao Lahan floated above, pleased as punch, holding the mace. Ha! I knew you weren't up to snuff. One smash, and I plastered you. I should have just used a third of my power instead. Zhao Lahan. A figure flashed above the mace. Taoba Liener. Look what you've done. Didn't we say we're only teaching him a lesson? Why kill him? And there's not even a corpse left. How will we explain this to the others? Shrugging, Zhao Lahan chuckled. It's not my fault that the brat was weak and was posing around with that cocky attitude. What taking 2 peak radiant stage experts attacks? That was clearly a lie. If I had known he was a wimp, an average profound heaven cultivator, I have used only 1%. Humph, he had it coming. That's besides the point. It was us who acted first. With such a ruckus, our plan, Taoba Liener, face-bombed. Rant came to a halt when a casual voice said, "What is your plan?" The two watched the massive bludgeon rocking, unleashing heavy tremors. Why, young miss, that power? Zhao Lahan felt himself being lifted along with his arm. No matter what he did to stop it, the force came from the crater, and he realized that he didn't have enough strength to fight it. This is impossible. Since when did the world have such a mighty being? Zhao Lahan narrowed his eyes and watched Zhuo Fan lifting the mace up with one hand, like a giant holding the heavens. His casual look gave the feeling that he wasn't even pushing it. Zhuo Fan. The girls cheered. Taoba Liener pointed with a trembling finger. He's still alive and not a scratch on him. Zhao Lahan. Use everything to push him back. I already am. Gnashing his teeth, Zhao Lahan's face twisted as he swelled under the strain. But no amount of strength proved to be of any use. Still being unable to budge the mace, Taoba Liener paled, looking at Zhuo Fan like he was a monster. Can the rumors be true? Does he truly surpass the strongest of our people? Zhao Lahan? She used to think that her father's savage wolf was the strongest person there was. But today, Zhuo Fan was handling him like a child. Zhuo Fan put on a savage grin. This doesn't look like a good place to chat. That makes this stick an eyesore. With a cold glint, Zhuo Fan gripped harder. Crack. Snapping sounds jarred the ears of everyone as the bludgeon was covered in fractures. Zhuo Fan added just a hint more oomph, and the giant stick fell into pieces. Everyone watched in stunned silence. The Chuanrong were even more shocked. The purple gold-forged heaven-breaking bludgeon was a 5th-grade spiritual weapon, and this guy used his brawn alone to crush it in his hand. What is he? Jalahan's face was unnatural, to say the least. He had never heard of such freakish power and was now shocked to his core as a typical narcissist. He took it upon himself, as being the best there was, only to face the harsh and cruel reality. There would always be someone better to be, and who Lianchai acted as spectators, scared out of their minds. The rumors didn't even do Zhuo Fan's power justice. That damn hearsay is asking us to get beat. In what way is he any weaker? Hu Lianchai felt like crying. His intel gathering had hit a snag again. Zhuo Fan drifted over to a panicked Taubalianer, his smile wide and creepy. About that plan of yours, care to fill me in? Gulping, Taubalianer was lost for words in fear. Jalahan sweated buckets, his eyes only reflecting fear. But he wasn't part of the 8 wolf wardens for nothing. He wouldn't give up just like that. It went double for when his young miss was under threat, while Zhuo Fan was focused on Lianer. He took out an identical bludgeon. After a short wind-up, he socked Zhuo Fan's head with it. Zhuo Fan never even looked, merely flicking it away in pieces while the weapon's owner's arm snapped from the power, running through the crumbling bludgeon. Jalahan still hadn't woken up to smell the roses. A mere wave from Zhuo Fan broke Chuanrong's best warrior's arm like a twig. This freak is not human. He is worse than a spiritual beast. Jalahan's arm dangled while he sweated like a pig. His heart was consumed by fear and in denial of what was right in front of him. It took a long time for it to sink in, the fear, the dread, the futility of it all. Taubalianer gave the wretched Jalahan a long look, then looked at the grinning Zhuo Fan. The poor girl was about to cry. She was really regretting it now. Messing with a monster without rhyme or reason. Jabi at the side had his bow and arrow primed, aimed between Zhuo Fan's eyes. He was also soaked in sweat. It was Sky-Piercing Wolf's first time facing such a thorn. Chapter 397. The Tragic Case of the Divine Archer. Chapter 397. The Tragic Case of the Divine Archer. Whoosh! Flashes of golden ripped the sky, each one going for Zhuo Fan. Upon a closer look, those golden lights were nothing more than golden arrows. They pierced the clouds, surging with relentless power, and, what's more, were in the hundreds. It was beyond comprehension how one man could shoot so many arrows. And those weren't your run-of-the-mill arrows either, but 5th-grade spiritual weapons. Each arrow was locked onto Zhuo Fan's vitals. Even before they arrived, Zhuo Fan already got the feeling of turning into a pincushion, that Sky-Piercing Wolf's ultimate skill. 9th Heaven Impaler? Raising an eyebrow, just a smidge, Zhuo Fan nodded. Not bad. He does have the skill of a divine archer to be able to injure Dugu Zhantian. Taubalianer looked grave. Why, you know Jabi? Sure, I heard of him from my young master. And he heard it from his foster brothers, for tigers of Tianyu. Zhuo Fan smiled. Miss Lianer, now don't go thinking only you do your homework. Our side liked gossip too. Of course I got to hear of our dear friend's remarkable skill. Zhuo Fan lifted his right arm towards the incoming rain of arrows. It shone red, and he grinned. His bow and arrow can be as strong as he likes, but they still won't ever get to best my sacred arm. Taubalianer realized he knew everything about them. Taking him by surprise was nigh impossible now. A darn shame Jabi was the exception. Humph, posh prick, people don't just pace around, they improve. Everything you know about us is outdated. Taubalianer snickered, grabbing Jalahan and flying away. Zhuo Fan was at a loss, seeing her pull some distance, and then it happened. The shining arrow rain split in every direction. They surrounded Zhuo Fan and only then shot towards him. Now Zhuo Fan had no way to dodge. Being at the center of an imploding sphere of arrows, any weakness Zhuo Fan had would be most clearly struck. His 2 beast fists were in no way capable of defending every inch of him. Either he was at death's door. Ha ha, see that rotten jerk. That's Jabi's newest ultimate, 1,000 arrow focal. This is his first time using it on the field. Try and block that. Taubalianer was delighted in Zhuo Fan's plight. The girls below were worried, sick. The smile on Jabi grew and grew. He knew exactly what this move could do. Each arrow was a 5th-grade spiritual weapon, each fired at full power, and now had the guy surrounded. It was impossible to make a perfect dodge or block. Even if Zhuo Fan survived, he'd be in a world of pain. This is called flawless archery. Zhubi had moved himself by what he had accomplished. Using his newest ultimate on a super expert like Zhuo Fan was the best field test. Zhuo Fan wasn't that thrilled. He sighed and dropped his hand. Word on the street is that Ninth Heaven Impaler is incredible. I thought of giving it a shot and to see how my arm fares. Yet instead I'm stuck with some 1,000 arrows something. How droll. Zhubi almost spat blood. His toil and sweat in creating this ultimate skill had earned a huge ixnay by Zhuo Fan's evaluation. His heart couldn't take it. Humph, ignorant sad sack. We'll see who's crying later. Taobao Lianer stuck out her head, having the same reaction. Humph, cut the act. You may be strong, but not even you can fend off this attack. You're finished. The sparkling arrows were this close to prick Zhuo Fan. Not that he cared. How about a bet? If even one arrow touches me, my head is yours. If not, I ask Miss to be kind enough to explain that little plan of yours. Fine. Taobao Lianer was incensed, replying on the spot. While Zhao Lahan was panicking, young Miss, Lianer dissed him with a wave. The glittering arrows were now a meter away from Zhuo Fan. There was no way he could get out of that. Not when they covered all exits. Taobao Lianer thought this bet was a foregone conclusion. Zhao Lahan nodded as well, snickering inside. The kid is strong, but not capable of avoiding all of that. Young Miss will win by a landslide. But their next reaction was, Holy Mother of God, how could he do this? Zhuo Fan squinted, a soul ripple flashed, and he picked up on Zhubi hiding behind a tree 1,000 meters out. Zhubi sensed it as well and knew that Zhuo Fan had found him. Though he wasn't afraid the arrows were this close to turning Zhuo Fan into a pincushion, he had bigger things to worry about than the shooter under the shocked and disbelieving gazes. Zhuo Fan lifted his right arm like a king and snapped his fingers just as the first arrow reached his chest, demanding go. Whoosh! The hundreds of arrows disappeared, appearing 1,000 meters away, aimed at Zhubi's hidey hole. What the hell? Zhubi was scared out of his mind and dropped all demeanor. Now surrounded by his own attack with blast galore, each arrow went for where it hurt. Flashes streaked the night sky on and off, in tune with the wails of agony in between. Venturing a guess, it was safe to assume that the divine archer had no friggin' clue how the hell this had happened. His first lab rat for his newest ultimate was himself. Something black and smoking plopped onto the ground, twitching now and then, squirting blood from God knew where. All that was secondary, though. What mattered was the gibberish coming from his mouth, with shock reflecting clearly in his eyes, more or less along the lines of cursing and wailing. Zhuo Fan's right eye's golden halo subsided, and he laughed. Ha ha ha, a true sky-piercing wolf and a flawless aim. Every last one of those hundreds of arrows hit true. I bow before the master. Taobao Lianer and Zhao Lahan were slack-jawed. Their minds were spewing curses, obscenities, and vulgarity faster than that divine archer's shot. What just happened? What did he do? Oh God. Lost was the look of confidence and pride on the two. All they could express was fear and shock. Where the hell did he come from? The arrows just turned on their own maker without so much as a warning. How in blazes is that even possible? Zhuo Fan smiled his creepy grin. Miss Lianer, it appears that we have a winner in our little bet. I do hope you'll concede. Gulping, the two faltered away from Zhuo Fan. Looking at him like he was a monster, hell itself spat out. Zhuo Fan wasn't just brawn, but armed with fancy tricks now. They realized how true Zhuge Chongfeng's warning rang. He had cleaved through the 7 houses by himself, so far, for a damn good reason. Sweet mother of mercy, just who in hell would ever mess with this freak? They even praised Regent Estate's balls for actually fighting this guy for so long. Miss Lianer, there are 2 kinds of people I abhor. The overconfident ones and weasels. You've checked the first type. Now I hope, for your sake, you won't make the mistake of checking the second. I may have to actually get serious. Zhuo Fan stared them down. Taobao Lianer's heart was in pain. Zhuo Fan had appropriated all of her shaping spring back in Beast King Mountain, and along with all those ingredients on top, leaving her high and dry, and now he had the cheek to preach to her about Welchers. This guy was a filthy skeeve Alahin, was turning red, wanting to plunge his head into something. Anything. He was Chuanrong's finest in terms of strength, cleaning the battlefield like a reaper on his day off. Yet this invincible and prideful warrior had just stepped out for a second to put a profound heaven bugger in his place. But lo and behold, the awe-inspiring savage wolf was taught a lesson in humility instead. His prideful heart found it hard to even beat, but what could you do, eh? This world was based on power. If the guy had you beat and said you were a disgrace, then that answered that. You could be in denial all you want, but you better damn well sit back and take it, if you know what's good for you. Or you could always retort, but was your fist tougher? Didn't think so compared to Tianyu, who practiced righteousness. The Chuanrong revered the strong. In front of Zhuofan's power, the two couldn't get a word in. At least the average second generation will be looking for a backer right about now, like my dad's the mayor, or something, but wait, the Chuanrong despise such things. A loss was a loss, regardless of how, to the point that they weren't even shouting out the fact that they were delegates. With diplomatic immunity, kill me. Taobao Yinner stuck out her neck, stubborn as a mule. Zhuofan grinned, his fingers crackling. Are you sure that you want to test me? You may be the Chuanrong delegation, finding jaywalking normal. But when going after the best steward beneath heavens, I have the right to judge you. Zhuofan's fist flashed red, his killing intent skyrocketing. Chapter 398, Exposed. Chapter 398, Exposed. Steward Zhuo, please stop. An anxious shout came as Zhuofan's bloodthirst grew and grew. Zhuge Changfeng rushed over with some men. They're the Chuanrong delegation. No matter what they are accused of, charging them isn't so simple. Zhuofan eyed him. Prime Minister Zhuge, by the looks of things, you know what they're up to. Then you must also realize that they came here to kill me. Steward Zhuo, please listen. They have come to solve their private matters. It has nothing to do with politics. You know what will happen if you kill them. That is not something you'd want. Zhuge Changfeng knew from a mile away that Zhuofan was no saint, willing to forgive and forget. So instead of appealing to his non-existing humanity, Zhuge Changfeng baited him with cold, hard benefits. If you let them go, I promise they will be of use to Steward Zhuo one day. You are an intelligent man. I needn't say more. Zhuofan was pondering. Zhuge Changfeng pointed out that the delegation were all in close relation with Commander Taoba Taizhan at the border. If they died in Tianyu, the old man would march his army down south. That would mean two things. First, the doer would be the culprit. With Zhuofan killing them, his head would be the only thing that could appease him. But would Zhuofan just hand it over like that? No way in hell. And the Chuanrong would take advantage of the chaos in Tianyu and invade the emperor. Definitely didn't want that, so he'd choose the second option, one that would let the emperor sleep with peace of mind. If Chuanrong invaded, the whole of Tianyu shall resist it, the 8 houses and the 4 pillars included. As for you, Zhuofan, the culprit behind it all, I'll let this go, but go out there and fight. Fight till your last breath and bleed out on the battlefield. The emperor would not only have all the other factions weakened in the name of Tianyu's safety, he'd also showcase Tianyu's power and give the Chuanrong a lesson they will not soon forget. It would end up with everyone being the loser, except the emperor now. That right, there was a classic case of the fisherman. Zhuofan clenched his fists, then relaxed his killing intent. Zhuge Changfeng eased a breath, knowing Zhuofan still cared about the big picture. It's so nice to talk to smart people. Before he finished, though, Zhuofan Snicker had something to say. Right, Prime Minister, sir. This time you owe me. I'll be sure to collect it in due time. Zhuge Changfeng let out a strained laughter. The kid sure knows how to take advantage. He knows letting them live is in his best interest, yet he is saying that he only did it for me. Then again, with how close he was to the Chuanrong, Zhuofan's words weren't that far off. All right, I owe you one. I will do my all when you need me. Zhuofan nodded. His eyes flashing, Zhuofan dumped his hostages in Zhuge Changfeng's care. Walking away like the average bystander, the 4 scheming demons had heard the commotion and scampered over on the double. But seeing that the party was a bust, they slumped into depression. Ah, we were late for the fun. Zhuofan glanced over at them and thought, perfect timing. Dumping the trio of babes in their hands, he wanted to take care of his own matters with the Lantern Festival ruined. Buildings in shambles, people running scared, and nothing else to see here. The girls went home. Zhuo Fan watched Zhuge Changfeng's Chuanrong with a twisted smile. His right eye flashed golden, and he was gone whoosh. Two shadows popped up the next second in Zhuo Fan's place. Looking all over, God damn it. The rotten brat moves around without logic with his twisted skill. Just how are we supposed to follow? Let's just report back to the captain. We just been given the damn slip. The other shadow was gone. The first one left just as quickly in this desolate area. Even though no one was in sight, the earth squirmed from time to time. 2 hours later, in the garrison, Zhuge Changfeng sported a dark look facing Tuoba Lufeng and Han Tianma. Next to him were the ashamed Taoba Liener and Jia Lahan with a broken arm, something black as night rested on the bed. It was only when Liener said that thing was sky-piercing wolf, Zhibi, did they actually believe it being let in on the whole story. The two were left speechless. Chuanrong's brave warriors, 8 Wolf Warden's second and third team members, did a joint attack and were flicked back with practiced ease. And the opponent even strolled away like nothing happened if not for Zhuge Changfeng's timely arrival. They'd be dead by now. Tuoba Lufeng didn't set out to cast blame on the trio, but instead was overwhelmed by the cruel affair. Zhuo Fan was an abomination. Zhuge Changfeng sighed. I warned you not to step on his toes. And yet you. Forgive us, Prime Minister Zhuge. I failed in teaching my sister. I will make sure this never happens again. Tuoba Lufeng bowed, glaring at Liener and Jia Lahan until their faces were red from shame. As for Zhibi, he was just laying there, in his blackness hum. The earth squirmed, and Hu Lianshai came out. He gave a salute and said, Prime Minister, sir, Zhuo Fan had a tail like you predicted, but he is truly remarkable. I don't know how he did it, but he even left me behind. Not just those two. The 2 tails left to report instead of following you here. Ha ha ha. They're His Majesty's men, all right. But that kid sure is cunning and sly like a fox. There may very well be no one in Tianyu capable of following him. Those 2 guys were merely trying their luck. Zhuge Changfeng mocked and praised. Obscure wolf, you are quite smart yourself to come to me first for help. Good, very good. Prime Minister, sir, that Zhuo Fan was too much of a monster. I was afraid of being wiped out and thought only sir could help. Without Prime Minister Zhuge's help, my sister and my men would have been slaughtered at the hands of that twisted maniac. As a brother and young commander, I express my deepest gratitude. Tuoba Lufeng gave a 90 degrees down angle bow. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. Young master, there's no need. Even without my interference, Zhuo Fan wouldn't have killed them. Tuoba Lufeng was lost, but sister said his killing intent was actually visible. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. He is not feared for his brawn, but for his insidious and twisted mind. His savage routine was all to draw me out. The one who comes out to save you first is bound to be the one closest to you. I presume that even His Majesty knows about our connection now. What? Tuoba Lufeng cried. What do we do now? Zhuge Changfeng said, it's fine. The difference between overt and covert schemes is that the latter will never see the light of day, while the former does not have such limitations. It won't change a thing, even if they do know. The events will continue to play out like normal. I can no longer stop them. But wouldn't it have been better if we weren't exposed? Tuoba Lufeng sighed. Prime Minister, sir, why did you come out knowing Zhuo Fan's intent? Zhuge Changfeng's brow trembled, and he spoke in a dark tone. Because I couldn't gamble whether Zhuo Fan to act or not, and chose to play it safe. I have read many people in my life, but only 2 have failed to open to me like a book. He is one of them. Everyone was stunned. Zhuge Changfeng was known as the best mind in Tianyu, yet he couldn't see through a brash kid. Zhuge Changfeng smiled and replied to their thoughts. I caught a glimpse of him before the esoteric debate, but ever since after the event, he is close to me. Or it may be that I don't even want to see, because in that battle, he had done terrible and unimaginable things. What? Taoba Liener lit up. Zhuge Changfeng sighed. He lost his mind over a girl. It was my first time seeing him like this. In his madness, he had executed some of the most savage ploys. ending with the death of Regent Estate's eldest young master and plunging the Luo clan into the twisted world of politics before its time. All of these were rash and ill-advised choices. He was sure of it as well, but made them anyway. From that moment, unwanted contriver could no longer read him, and I do not dare fathom his train of thoughts. No one can grasp when he's going to snap or play it cool. Zhuge Chongfeng took a deep breath. You now know why I exposed myself and why I had to save you. It is impossible for me to tell if his actions are driven by lunacy or insidious lull. Han Tianma and the rest sighed, scared by a man who was too unbalanced or unreadable to guess what his next action would be. Meanwhile, Zhuo Fan went to a tea house to meet with a black robe. Chapter 399, Sensitive Talk. Chapter 399, Sensitive Talk. January 1st, 2022. Zhuo Fan used discerning field to scan for any nosy neighbors. Only then did he walk into the tea house and sat across from the black robe. Who knew this day would come when you'd ask me out? The black robe kept his hood low, hiding his features. Zhuo Fan smiled. We're all old friends in a way. Chatting around a cup of tea after so long is pretty normal. Cut the act. You know it well enough that our grudge can't be mitigated. We never had any friendly chats. The black robe sipped his tea, his words cold. Zhuo Fan giggled. Well, looky here how you've improved. Think I can't snap your head right here, right now? Yes, I do. The man shook his head. You would have long killed me by now, otherwise. I'm not your match. But since I've answered your invitation, I'm sure you didn't come here just to finish me off. Zhuo Fan grinned. I see you've done some growing up over the past years. Not just a conniving mentality, but nerves too, just like that old demon back in the day. Shuddering, the black robe's grip on the teacup tensed, yet he continued sipping the green tea. I'll keep it nice and simple. The report I have from my house's spies puts you in a precarious position at a crossroad. And have you come to threaten me with it? The black robe's cold tone cut Zhuo Fan off. See how much good will that do? My two employers agree on my choice. You won't be using that on me anytime soon. You pegged me all wrong. I didn't come here to threaten you. Instead, just to talk. If you're interested, Zhuo Fan stared hard at him. How about a three-way crossroad? Mind considering taking a step towards the Luo clan as well? Shuddering, the man cried in disbelief. What did you say? I think I was clear enough. Zhuo Fan chuckled. A sly person always has a fallback. Why not get one extra? For you, it comes with no downsides. Don't tell me you haven't been considering it. You're insane. We're enemies. The black robe roared, slapping the table. I'll never help you. Zhuo Fan mocked. You're so outdated. Very. This will probably be the highest you can go. What did you say? Nothing, really. Before the esoteric debate, I met Zhuge Chongfeng and talked. He asked me, and Lung Wuchang schemed for our own personal gains. So why do you stay a mere steward to a run-down, third-rate clan? My answer was simple. My ambitions go beyond his. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with malice. The way I see it, be it some unwanted contriver or the greatest mind of this empire, I will always be better. As for you, you're not even at their level. Your scope is tiny. Shuddering, the black robe dazed out. His mind drifted. Zhuo Fan just sat there. Waiting, he sighed at one point and stood up. I see that you still don't understand. Never mind then. I don't have the time to wait for you to catch up. One moment. The man stopped him and said, Tianyu is on the brink of anarchy. What promises do I have that your Luo clan will come out on top? If I were to say because yours truly is around, Luo clan will have the last laugh, you probably won't believe me, so? Grinning, Zhuo Fan said, I will let you stay at the three-way crossroad. You will have the luxury to pick the winning side. The man replied after a pause, You don't expect me to burn the other two bridges to take yours, do you? Of course not. You're no fool and won't do it even if I tell you to. Everyone is selfish. If the Luo clan falls, you still have the other two, right? Zhuo Fan had an uncanny smile, like a nice uncle handing candy to children. The black robe nodded. If there are no conflicts of interest, I am open to cooperation. Splendid. It can't be simpler. I won't need you to do something hard anyway. Just do this at the right time, and you're in. Fan whispered in his ear. The black robe froze, then watched him stunned. Have you lost it? Literally everyone is trying to do anything to not take that wretched and doomed fate. Do you want to jump right in and be the center of it all? Who do you think you are, Gu Santong? Shrugging, Fan said, What else can I do? Everyone is out to get me. Well, someone's got to do it. The man held his gaze, then nodded, praising. Now I understand how you've climbed so far. To others you are ruthless, but a savage to yourself. From what you want of me, I can guess this much. Fan is Fan, specialized in turning the world upside down. Ha ha ha, please, I'm blushing. Then, to our healthy relationship. Fan put his hand out with a smile. The black robe grabbed it with a clap and left in the night. Fan grinned before leaving as well. Meanwhile, in a refined pavilion, Lung Wuchang was enjoying some fine wine in peace and quiet. A pop sounded, and there came Fan. Out of the blue, Lung Wuchang wasn't fazed in the least. He even offered him a drink and a smile. Steward Zhuo, it's been a while. What could have brought upon this invitation? Ha ha ha. A scheming mastermind like Sir Lung can't take a gander. Fan giggled. Lung Wuchang shook his head, enjoying the wine. Ha! I may venture one on the rest of the masses, but when it comes to Steward Zhuo's treachery, since the esoteric debate, I have stopped taking wild guesses. I ask that you be plain. I shall be terse then. I have invited Sir for a simple question. Go on. Lung Wuchang waved casually. Sir Lung, what do you wish to accomplish by staying in the Regent Estate for all these years? Did you grasp it? Fan asked. Lung Wuchang's cup shook, his reply bitter. Steward Zhuo, don't patronize me, please. I was on the brink of taking it for myself, but then you came along and all my plans went up in smoke. Can you blame me? If it weren't me, then Prime Minister Zhuge. If not Prime Minister Zhuge, the still tough emperor. Fine, fine. Just say your piece. Lung Wuchang grew impatient. Fan turned serious. Sir Lung, you have toiled in the Regent Estate for decades with the prize nowhere in sight. Perhaps you may have an easier time down at the Luo clan? What? Lung Wuchang jumped, then cracked up. Steward Zhuo, you've now come to steal me away? Sorry to disappoint, but what I want is something you can't understand. Moreover, the Luo clan has you. Won't adding me make it crowded? And if I'm not in the Luo clan? Squinted Fan, Lung Wuchang cried. There's no way that can happen. Following with a shake of his head, if Steward Zhuo is out of the Luo clan, that house will fall apart. There'll be no point. Ha ha ha. Since I plan on leaving, I'll make sure to get everything ready and not let it scatter in the wind. To complete my project, I need the help of someone. Fan spoke heavily. Sir Lung, Prime Minister Zhuge once said that you and him are the right hand of leaders, but each with their own agenda. I do not know what Prime Minister Zhuge's aim is, but I do have a theory about yours. Do you remember telling me how, with the three of us together, nothing can stop us? It got me thinking. You may appear conceited, but you wish to prove yourself, to stand out. I am giving you the chance now to take all the credit. Fan whispered in Lung Wuchang's ear. Lung Wuchang's calm slowly gave way to shock, and then his eyes became bugged out. Steward Zhuo, that's a huge undertaking. You plan on uniting the continent? Lung Wuchang asked, still in shock. Fan smiled. Never dreamed of it. I'm not a schemer at heart, but a cultivator yearning for the Tao, while Sir Lung is more than eager to have such a grand achievement. Lung Wuchang nodded with a frown. Yes, this is the greatest achievement of all times. But with Regent Estate's legacy, it's no problem grasping it. Why then do you insist on having me turn to the Luo clan? Because that's where I am, and there are some things only I can provide. Fan put on a mysterious smile. I won't force Sir Lung to make a decision now. All you have to do is a nudge from you at the right moment, and you'll be on board. As for the future, you can help the Regent Estate as its steward in any way you wish. And if the Luo clan falls, you won't be feeling any repercussions. Lung Wuchang gave a nod. Fan smiled. Whispering sensitive matters in his ears, all the pieces were in play, and all that was left was to wait for him, a fate changer and an anomaly, to unleash anarchy. Chapter 400, Centennial Jubilee. Chapter 400, Centennial Jubilee. 5 days later, Tianyu's emperor held his centennial jubilee. The world was at peace, the clans were attending, the Chuanrong delegation came bearing gifts, and the 8 noble houses were present. The entire nation was in celebration. Zhuo Fan, who hardly ever cleaned up his act, was positively radiating, looking handsome and charming. Though one thing he couldn't get rid of was his trademark evil smile. The celebration is the beginning of the end. Just wait and see, Humph. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed, and he left the house. Luo clan's members were already waiting, and their eyes lit up on his arrival with Zhuo Fan being so lazy and uncaring of his image as usual. Seeing him all freshened up and dressed was a remarkable sight. Luo Yunchang and Yun Shuang's eyes sparkled. Steward Zhuo, are you going on a date? Looking at you all spruced up, I wonder how many ladies' hearts are you going to steal? Captain Pang laughed. Luo Yunhai nodded, while Zhuo Fan had a vague smile. It is His Majesty's anniversary today. How can I not dress the part to show my utmost respect? Anyhow, he did make me the best steward beneath heavens. Brother Zhuo, you don't usually mind such niceties. How is it that today? Captain Pang was lost. Zhuo Fan shook his head, turning to Luo Yunhai. Yunhai, no matter what happens, you mustn't panic. As a clan head, the least you must have is a steady mind. Luo Yunhai nodded, clueless as he was. As for you dwarfs, do you still remember what I told you last night? Zhuo Fan snapped to the 4 scheming demons, laughing. The 4 pygmies were determined. Steward Zhuo, if there's one thing we're good at, it's that, haha. What's that? Zhuo Fan, what are you up to now? Luo Yunchang asked. Zhuo Fan shook his head with a smile. It's nothing. Come on. Luo Yunchang could only look at him in suspicion, following the others. When the time came to take the carriage to Imperial Palace, instead of taking a ride with Yunhai and her, like usual, he shared one with Yun Shuang. This left her stunned and crestfallen. Yun Shuang jerked, her cheeks blushed, and she was about to refuse. But the jerk that Zhuo Fan always was entered the carriage without a care, and even pulled her close with an evil grin. Shuang, is something wrong, or do you not like my company? Not at all. But shouldn't you go with young Miss? She neither had been on the Luo clan's premises for a couple of days, nor was born yesterday. It was obvious to her that Luo Yunchang was carrying a torch for Zhuo Fan, while Zhuo Fan, being the steward, and Luo Yunchang, being the master, complemented each other. While she, the outsider, felt quite awkward getting so close with another's man, Zhuo Fan didn't mind it in the least, wearing the same snickering smile. You should get used to it then. We will be spending many days together in the future. What? Yin Shuang stared at Zhuo Fan, cheeks blazing. She couldn't make sense of his words, and her heart was jumping to conclusions one beat at a time. Her heart got so fast that it felt like it had burst out of her chest. Zhuo Fan sat there calmly, wearing the same all-knowing look. Luo clan's convoy was going down the imperial capital's main street en route to the imperial palace. The crown prince was waiting at the gates along with his 2 brothers. Yuan Yong grinned. Crown Prince nodded, and the second prince's face twitched. There was a distinct possibility that he recalled a particularly painful event for his mood. To sink, the other 2 knew why, of course, choosing to ignore him and proceeding to welcome the guests. Luo Yunhai and Luo Yunchang came out of the first carriage. The princes looked inside at the empty ride and wondered, where's Steward Zhuo? Zhuo Fan walked out of the second carriage, leading a blushing Yun Shuang by the hand. The 2 princes jumped to conclusions on the spot. Luo Yunchang was staring daggers at the couple, her heart consumed by jealousy. When did they get so close? Sigh, some outstanding men have so much appeal, everyone wants them. Nobody noticed the second prince in the corner, showing an odd look seeing the 2 princes so close to the couple. Brother Zhuo, you're an eminent romantic. Every time I see you, you're holding a bell in each arm. Mind letting this bachelor in on your little secret? His largeness sighed. Zhuo Fan merely waved. Fatty, I'll be frank here. Everything before was a lie, while only today is real. Yin Shuang blushed harder, her heart frantic. When did Steward Zhuo have such feelings for me? Luo Yunchang shuddered, her mind blown. It was the first time Zhuo Fan was open about his feelings, never speaking of them even in front of Chu Qingsheng. Why is he suddenly bearing his soul for a lady he had met not a month ago? Is it because she bears a striking resemblance to Ning'e? Luo Yunchang felt bitter as the crown prince laughed. Congratulations, Steward Joie. Holy maiden and a hero make for a match made in heaven. Ha ha ha. Joie Fan held his head high, with a confident smile. Yin Shuang was already riper than a tomato. Lowering her head in confusion, she still didn't understand what had just happened. When did I and Steward Joie become an item? Please, this way. The Crown Prince flourished. Joie Fan led Yin Shuang in front, entering the Grand Hall. He noticed the other houses, and Zhuge Changfeng and Duge Zhantian were all there. Even the Chuanrong delegation was present, glancing at the still pale Jalahan and Jabi. Joie Fan put on a savage smile, bringing out the fear in their eyes. Han Tianma and Tuobo Lufeng scanned him. Getting shocked by the second, it was hard to fathom how a young man like Joie Fan possessed such godlike power. He had been taken out yesterday. The problem was finding the means to carry this act out. Steward Joie, a new fling, I see. An odd voice jarred Joie Fan's eardrums. It was Drifting Flowers Edifice's peony overseer. She took Chu Qingqing's place in expressing her total objection with fiery and angry eyes. Peony. Silence. Don't be rude. Grandmother glared at her and then smiled at Joie Fan. Ha ha, Steward Joie. Don't mind her temper. How could I? She's right after all. I do have a new fling. Joie Fan pulled Yin Shuang's hand for emphasis, flashing past the people and towards the Luo clan's lavish seats. Making sure to seat Yin Shuang right next to him, his act made all the girls frown with envy. Secondly, Yin Shuang was blushing even harder, being showered by the Drifting Flowers Edifice's stares. She couldn't meet their gazes, feeling shameful for doing something she shouldn't. Like snatching Joie Fan away, the thing was, she was clueless towards whatever that was going on here. Joie Fan being the main perpetrator, and so Yin Shuang sat on pins and needles, looking crushed next to Joie Fan. Her eyes were even tearing up the houses. Officials and the delegation took their seats soon after, followed by the princes going in front. The Crown Prince smiled. Ha ha, today is my imperial father's centennial jubilee, a national holiday. All of you coming here, especially Chuanrong's delegation coming from afar, have brought much honor with your presence. A grand occasion for Tianyu and Chuanrong to join hands. Rolling his eyes, Tuobo Liufeng's side wasn't used to Tianyu's customs, preaching hypocrisies and all that. All I hear is that we've come to celebrate, that it's you who are the winners in this. And you're even thankful? What kind of joke is this? No one understood that in Tianyu, the emperor ruled supreme. You newcomers have come bearing gifts for the emperor, giving him prestige. Of course we take advantage of you. Why else do you think you're standing here? Faced with such tangled logic, the terse Chuanrong could never wrap their heads around it. While the Crown Prince brushed up on his oratory skills, singing praises and all that, in the imperial study, the emperor in his best clothes was putting on a mean face, ready to join the festivities. Is everyone here? The emperor's eyes flashed. A shadow kneeled. Your Majesty, they are. Please give us orders. Good. I can finally see the end of this game. With carefree steps, the smiling emperor walked up to his desk and did a checkmate. The secret pearl order from 1,000 years ago is finally implemented. Tianyu is mine after all. Making a fist, the emperor turned and briskly walked towards the hall with the servants in tow. Finally, we made it to 400. Chapter 401, Lands of Our Nation. Chapter 401, Lands of Our Nation. His Majesty has arrived, the sharp voice announced. The emperor in his dragon robe walked through the center of the hall with large, confident steps. Followed by dozens of guards, the princes stepped aside in a respectful bow. Be it the officials, the houses, or Chuanrong delegation, everyone stood up and bowed to the man's glorious and stern countenance. The emperor took his seat on the throne, and his eyes roamed the crowd. Today is my birthday, a day to celebrate for the entire nation. Everyone is welcome to the festivities, as are the faraway Chuanrong delegation. Take your seats. Thank you, Your Majesty. May you live a long and prosperous life. Everyone bowed again before, sitting the Crown Prince came before the emperor with a salute and a bow. The entire empire is in jubilation of your anniversary, Imperial Father. I have also prepared a special gift for this unique occasion. May Your Majesty live a long and prosperous life. Oh, Crown Prince has always been wise. I would like to see this gift. It must be a truly remarkable item. Huh, the emperor laughed. Bring it forth. Two servants lifted a painting and unveiled it before the crowd, masterstrokes of the pen. A poignant ink smell and flamboyant writing were presented. The painting showed lofty mountains and vibrant rivers, so vivid they could practically jump out of the paper. In the right corner was written Dan Xing Shun in bold strokes. Tuoba, Lu Feng cried out. Is that mad painter Sheng, the best in the western lands, the lands of our nation masterpiece? Correct. Young Master Tauba has a good eye. It is indeed one of Senior's rare heirlooms. Lands of our nation. Crown Prince grinned, looking at the guests, and Pride Fan didn't get it. What was so great about some brushwork? In a world where might made one right. What was an egghead painter supposed to be worth? He would soon find out, though, just how valuable and shocking this painting was. Everyone knows, be it Xuanrong or Tianyu, that the western lands hold a tiny and insignificant little kingdom. Yet, 8 centuries ago, a talent was born in the same kingdom. Not only did his power surpass the kingdoms, but he was a scholar fascinated by painting, excelling in pen and sword. He alone had overcome 10 great sects, becoming the uncontested #1. Everyone was watching Crown Prince. Their ears focused. Every clan with even an ounce of renown had heard of this legend. But no one took it to be true that a man like that was a painter. As for the newcomer's fan, he was oblivious to it all. But every single man here held deep respect for such an unworldly expert. So he listened as well. Crown Prince cleared his throat, basking in the gazes of everyone. Legend has it that he drew one incomparable masterpiece, the lands of our nation. In those days, he watched his lands in turmoil, and a crazy ambition was born from his obsession with painting. And anyone who brings this painting to him will have their dearest wish fulfilled, even helping them establish their own nation. Everyone was startled. With Western Land's first expert's help, one could have all the lands he wanted. Even the entire West. Tuoba Lufeng was grave, trembling each time he watched the scroll. If the legend turns true, that means Tianyu has a deadly weapon. We have to have it. Tuoba Lufeng and Han Tiama's eyes met, and they gave each other a secret nod. A casual voice was heard. Your Highness, where is this Dan Xing Shun now? Ugh. The Crown Prince turned to Fan, cleared his throat once, and said subdued, They say the senior has been missing for 8 centuries, and no one has found any clues of him since. TCH, Fan mocked. What damn use does a damn painting have if you can't find the right damn person? Laughter burst all over. Fan was blunt as a birch stump, but made damn sense too. The guy was gone for 800 years, so getting his painting wouldn't get you an inch of land. It was only good for showing off. Tuoba Lufeng and Han Tiama paused. How could an expert gone missing 8 centuries ago appear? In the end, the painting was just that, a piece of paper with ink on it. It posed no threat. The Crown Prince's cheeks burned, glaring at Fan. For God's sake, you've upstaged me. I gave you all those treasures for nothing. The way the Crown Prince figured, this gift was useless, but using the legend around it, he would show off and earn his daddy's attention. But one simple line from Fan had ruined everything. Now the imperial father will mock my gift. Though his heart was a mess, the emperor was calm. Crown Prince, I understand your good intentions for me, the people, and the land. Using disreputable means to gain land won't last the test of time. The painting may not be practical, but it is a work of art. I shall accept it. Thank you, Imperial Father, for your guidance. Crown Prince bowed, gratified that the Emperor got him out of that mortifying moment. Present the reward. The Emperor said the closest servant brought the Crown Prince a case containing a jade scepter. Crown Prince, you are my eldest, and I wish for you to be safe and have all your dreams come true. Thank you, Imperial Father. Crown Prince made a deep bow, touched to the core. Fan mocked. How touched can you be when a lame scepter won't even get you a mountain? It was the second prince's turn to come forth. May Imperial Father be as content as the sea, your rule as long as the mountains. This gift of mine is a token of my appreciation and sincerity. His hand flashed, and a 9-foot-long heaven-drawn halberd smashed the ground, shaking the feast. The guards' response was quick in posing themselves before the emperor. Only at his casual wave did they withdraw. Child. The emperor's beard shook, sighing inside, my second son has always been filled with valor, yet not an ounce of propriety. Second prince proudly declared, Imperial father, this is heaven-piercing cloud halberd, an 8th-grade spiritual weapon, a rare find that I have toiled much to bring to you. Be that as it may, what am I to do with this toy, son? The emperor's pained voice came. Second prince froze. Of course I've brought it for your safety, Imperial father. Isn't that obvious? Or rather, you would stick to the elder brother's side, but not mine? Second prince turned glum. Imperial father, this 8th-grade spiritual weapon is far better than my eldest brother's painting. Zhuofan snorted and rolled his eyes. Everyone watched the second prince with a heavy look. Dude, sure your toothpick is better than Crown Prince's paper, but you need to think of the circumstances. Today's emperor's anniversary. So you brought him a weapon to hail him long life? It would have worked for Marshal Duga, though. You were getting off easy being the emperor's son. Anyone else would have got the chopping block by now. The emperor sighed and shook his head, forcing a nod. I accept your gift, but I'm unable to use it, so I will bestow it to you. I hope that it may help you in defending Tianyu and strike at the heart of its enemies. 2 servants pulled the halberd from the floor and presented it back to the second prince. Second prince grew flustered. Wait, Imperial father, that's the same as not taking my gift. Is my 8th-grade spiritual weapon less than the elder brother's painting? Please reconsider, Imperial father. The emperor's face hardened and his eyes grew cold. Yong, remember this. What I give you, you will accept without question. What I don't give you, don't ever try to take it. Am I clear? Shuddering, the second prince could feel the emperor's bloodthirst on his skin and nodded in fear. He withdrew while holding the halberd. The emperor perked up and nodded, but the mood was ruined, with the guests having lost their jovial air. They had witnessed the son of heaven's cruel and savage power. The emperor was not the mild and tempered old man, but a savage beast ready to jump out of that decrepit skin. Chapter 402, Engagement. Chapter 402, Engagement. Songer, you're always running to and fro, gaining knowledge with every trip. I'm sure there are many oddities you've collected along the way. I am very eager to see what you have for me. 2 princes down and 1 to go. Now that the third prince's turn had arrived, his large and his fat body was planted firmly in his chair. The emperor looked at him oddly and teased. The chubby trembled, wiped his ever-sweaty brow, and wobbled to his feet before the emperor with a bright smile. Imperial father, I actually plan on giving you a great gift, top grade in fact, of perfect design and quality. To the point. The emperor's face darkened. The tubby wiped his oily hands, sweat falling down his brow like torrential rain, and took a coy tone. But I recalled Imperial father's teachings. All the lands belong to the king, and all the people are the king's subjects. So what could I possibly give the Imperial father when everything in this world is already yours? Anything that I would offer would be taking the Imperial father's item only to return it. There is nothing in this world truly mine to give. As such, the emperor's eyes grew colder, swallowing dryly. The fatty wiped more sweat before saying, As such, Imperial father, you must understand. Of course I do. At my centennial jubilee, everyone on earth pays me tribute, yet only my son comes up empty. No, Imperial father, you've got it all wrong. I believe that anything that I would present would be too crude and quaint to express my deep love and endless respect for my Imperial father. For this reason, I have sought the help of a great teacher for a month to learn a dance for your anniversary. The fatty came to the front, cueing the music and going down into a wobbly, strange thing called dancing. No, it was a bit too soon to call it dance. It was more or less along the lines of quirky, jumping. His largeness flicked his hair, batted his eyes, his bubbly cheeks bouncing at the slightest movement. It was downright revolting, hideous, and worthy of nothing but being thrown out. It was like looking at the sea from a boat, with the waves going up and down and up and, while the blob bounced around, quaking the floor with every downstroke. So too did the audience, maybe too in tune with the artist and his handy dash, footwork. Even their guts were doing the rumba. It was truly a jolting experience crack. It wasn't just one, oh no, the entire audience was cracking their knuckles, looking at the graceful ballerina with bloodshot eyes. If not for him being a self-respecting prince, they would probably be raining fists and kicks by this point. Sweet mother of mercy. A dance should be easy on the eyes, but yours is sucking the life out of me. The emperor's face took so many shades of white, even he didn't know it could. Shaking to his very bones, his fists clenched, his eyes red, pouring every ounce of his strength into not jumping in there to sock the ball into cutting the hellish dance out. But at some point, something was bound to snap, and that unfortunately happened to be his patience. Stop. Rumble. The fatty froze with a bent waist, blinking his big puppy eyes at the emperor's bloodshot one's every single guest breathed easier, cherishing this moment of peace on earth. So, next time, bring that great teacher of yours. I promise not to kill him. Now go. The emperor sighed, the chubby bowed, and then hopped and banged his way to the chair, pleased as a punch for getting away with it. The rest of the guests were eternally grateful that the horror show had ended. We are blessed that our eyes aren't scarred from watching your chipper son bounce. Your mercy has no bounds, Emperor. The crown prince stood up again. Imperial father, although the third brother's dance may be a bit rough around the edges, his intentions are good and his heart pure. Please bestow him a reward, Imperial father. Humph. Can anything live up to his performance? The emperor's eyes flashed. Crown prince chuckled. Imperial father, third brother has been an oddball since birth. With your endless affection, only giving me and the second brother something will make the third brother feel left out. Please consider his sincere feelings and offer him a little something. A token, perhaps. I'll say it one last time. I can bestow a reward on anyone on this land, except him. The emperor's smile was cold. What bestowal would even be worthy anyway? It sent a cold shiver down the hearts of everyone. The emperor implied that he was grumbling from having such a fatty as a son. But how could the ruler be so short-sighted, fussing with his son over trifles? Joie Fan scratched his nose, exchanging a look with the first and second great minds. He already had an idea what was up. Only the second prince put on a mocking smile. Crown prince tried it again. Imperial father, please. Silence, the emperor said. Crown prince, there are some things you have no sway over. It's fine, elder brother. I know I've stepped on the imperial father's nerves. Not receiving anything is normal. There's no need to try anymore. The fatty pouted, lamented, and advised the second prince enjoyed their distress. One's a hypocrite, the other's a blob. At least they have each other, humph. The crown prince gnashed his teeth and gave one last look to the emperor before taking a seat. His hands were clenched tight, the fingers digging into his palms. Just why is it like this? I'm a crown prince. How can I lose to that lord? Glancing at the second prince's mocking face, crown prince taunted. You idiot. Not even this can get through your thick skull. Anyone can be rewarded, except the emperor. What the imperial father just did was that he showed his intent on the successor. But why does it have to be him? The crown prince looked at the fatty, who was saluting back in gratitude. Is the punk oblivious to imperial father's meaning, or is he just that good at faking it? In the crown prince's eyes, the longer he stared at his horizontally challenged brother, a thicker bloodthirst was brewing. The celebration went on with the officials, the 7 houses and the delegation presenting their gifts, each with a reward returned in kind. As the music picked up once again, graceful and stacked girls glided into the room while dancing. With that lard ass setting the mood for an upset stomach with his class act, the audience got to appreciate these girls' efforts much better, to the point that they saw them as starlets, mesmerizing and soothing whoosh. One figure jumped out of the crowd and presented a plate of peaches to the emperor. Happy anniversary, imperial father. May your joy be boundless and your life never-ending. The emperor looked at the apple of his eyes, and his heart softened. Ha ha ha. Yongning, You have brought me the best gift. Truly, Yoning jumped up with a smile and went for a hug. Then, Imperial Father, please reward me properly. Ha ha ha, of course. What would you like? The Emperor laughed, doting on her with a wobbling face. The fatty pointed a sausage at his dear sister and cut her off. Imperial Father, didn't you want to know my great dancing teacher? It's her. But worry not, Yoning, Imperial Father's word is gold. He won't beat you to death. The Emperor looked off kilter. Yoning, did you teach Tsonger to dance? Ugh. Blushing, Yoning glared at the living fat. She had also witnessed that thing's high-class act. It was like a horror show, but now accepting that she was the grand dance teacher behind it all, wouldn't that ruin her reputation? Yoning explained, Imperial Father, don't listen to his gaffe. I've taught him to the best of my abilities, but his dancing is just that nauseating. Ha ha ha, I see. My princess dancing is the best in Tianyu. The Emperor nodded. Yoning, you still haven't told me what you want. Blushing, Yoning peeked at Zhuofan, twiddling with her bracelet, acting coy and all. Imperial Father, don't you think it's time? I mean, for Mother's final wish. The Emperor nodded, sending her back to the center and shouted, Yoning Zhuofan, here is my decree. Today, Princess Yoning and best steward beneath heavens, Zhuofan, shall be wedded. What? Unlike the exuberant Yoning, everyone else was dumbstruck. Zhuofan figured something like this was coming and sneered inside it didn't end with just some simple decree. The second prince found his guts from God knew where and jumped forth. Imperial Father, I have long since taken a liking to the parish's holy maiden Yunshuang. I ask the Imperial Father to wed us. The Emperor grinned inside. What's up with today? Everything is falling together perfectly. He had long been thinking about how to steal Yun clan back from the Luo clan, to take advantage of Zhuofan's calculative ploy, using this perfect chance to do just that the Emperor nodded and sighed. Marvelously done, my son. And spoke. Happiness comes in two today, with Miss Schwanger tying the knot with my son. Second Prince kowtowed. Yun Shuang shuddered, crestfallen, grabbing Zhuofan's arm tighter out of instinct with a confident smile on. Zhuofan gave her a warm look. It's okay. You're with me now. It will never change. Yun Shuang's eyes turned red, but her heart regained calm. The last time she'd been so at ease was when her grandfather was alive. Chapter 403, Breaking All Pretense. Chapter 403, Breaking All Pretense. There was a damp and dark tunnel littered with checkpoints made of sealed heavy doors, and two radiant stage experts, standing guard at each one of them. Their moods were heavy as their eyes narrowed. A guard holding a set of keys approached. With a flash of a badge, the gate opened. The badge read Emperor's Approval Gate after gate. The guard had to pass through 18 of them to reach the end. It was a small dark room with a pint-sized figure resting on a simple bed, chewing lazily on something. What does the old coot want this time? Taking another bite, a tender voice came, filled with disdain. You come to me for help, yet lock me up in this hellhole whenever you're done with me. For 300 years, I've kept my word, the only saving grace you have for my rage. And these things, I have never eaten worse garbage in 300 years. Aren't I a divine dragon? Whoosh. He threw away the thing at the guard with a bang. It flashed past the guard's face, wind biting his face. It made a meter-deep hole in the wall behind him and even shook the whole place. Yet the thing was still intact. The guard was scared out of his mind. This place was made of a 7th-grade material, crystallized black tungsten, turning it into a fortress. But to this guy, it was like paper. A casual flick, and the place got ventilation. The guard made a shaky bow. Sir Gu Santong, please calm down. I am only conveying the Emperor's orders to handle a tough opponent. I'm not going. Gu Santong snorted. I've only promised to defend the imperial family. There's nothing in it related to putting me to work. Do it yourself. The guard begged again. Sir, His Majesty is requesting you in person. This man is an exceptional expert. How can anyone match him? Moreover, His Majesty promises to improve your meals. Improve? By how much? Gu Santong raised an eyebrow. The guard picked up 3 fingers. 3rd-grade ingredient every day, with 4th grade on holidays. Gu Santong's eyes spun, and then he shook his head. 4th grade every day and 5th grade on holidays. No, make that 6th grade. It's a deal. The guard let out a carefree nod. The promise was still within His Majesty's limits. I need to get this young master out of here fast. Gu Santong hopped around in joy. He'd finally sleep with a full belly from now on. Oh, and who's the one you're after? You've never asked me to act before. Ha ha ha. His Majesty will tell you when the moment comes. We're just guards transmitting his orders. We cannot fathom His Majesty's mind. Gu Santong didn't care. As long as he had his fill, he'd capture anyone. Back at the feast, the emperor had just declared a marriage, bringing joy to the kneeling Yongning. Next to her was Yuan Yong on his knees as well, though he was a nervous wreck. Just before this exchange, he had seen Zhuo Fan and Yin Shuang being all lovey-dovey, and now he had asked the imperial father for her hand. He was out to steal another person's girl. It wouldn't make a difference to your average citizen, but that right, there was the best steward beneath heavens. Zhuo Fan's rage was still very much ingrained in his mind. Back when the guy flattened his home, of course, he'd be trembling. But a sneak peek at Hell Valley's side, catching a nod of a figure, he relaxed. I just hope it'll go like he said, and Zhuo Fan won't put my princely head on a pike. Luo Yunchang was testy, not over Yin Shuang, but while glaring at Yongning. She has had her eyes on the heartthrob Zhuo Fan for years, yet this broad was just going to take him from her? She wouldn't have it. Zhuo Fan finally spoke, Your Majesty. He did a full salute, but his tone was icy. Please withdraw your edict. I and Miss Shuang are perfect for each other long since we've gotten together. It wouldn't be right for us to marry another. What? Everyone was slack-jawed. They guessed the two had been on good terms, knowing each other well after only a month, but how did they get entangled to such a degree so fast? Luo Yinchang was puzzled. The two had only displayed their affection today. When did they get to do the horizontal mambo? And how come she didn't know? Yin Shuang froze, her eyes red and confused. What is he up to? Impossible. Yongning shot to her feet, refuting those claims. I and Shuang are practically sisters, and I've also been by the Prosperity Compound many times. I would have realized in an instant if anything was up. Zhuo Fan grinned at her hot-headedness. Of course you'd realized, and so did everyone else in the Luo clan. Don't you remember the night you'd invited me to celebrate? That woman, perhaps? Shuddering, everyone turned to the young, frail Yin Shuang, who was flushing harder than a tomato with tears in her eyes. She was a sensible girl and couldn't endure having her mortifying moment to be out in the open. Zhuo Fan had other things on his mind besides the trifling things like shame. He grabbed Yin Shuang's hand and sneered. That was Shuang. Everyone in Luo clan can attest, since I was doing my business when they burst in. That does seem to be the case. Luo Yinhai nodded. He was clueless towards Zhuo Fan's aim in exposing such a degrading affair, but he figured it will all lead somewhere. 4 scheming demons were jumping and hooting in confirmation, as well Zhuo Fan and Yin Shuang were an item. There were no two ways about it. Yongning and Luo Yunchang glared daggers at Yin Shuang. Defend the guy all you'd like, but it was hard to find a traitor in one's midst. What a good sister, stealing my man from right under my nose. Yin Shuang looked devastated with her head low. Pointed out by all husbands what a chippy she was. All those stares were making her sick. The emperor watched it all with a cold dragon's eye, his fingers drumming on the table. With a deep breath, his boundless majestic voice came. Are you done? The wedding is tomorrow. Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow and laughed. Your Majesty, if I don't feel like it, there's no one in the world that can make me. Bam! The emperor flew off the handle. Insolent. I am the ruler here, the emperor. My decree is final. Zhuo Fan, you dare question my authority? All eyes watched in shock, their hearts drumming in their chests. What's up with His Majesty? That is the best steward beneath heavens. You honored yourself. Marriage is such a trifle, so why make such a big fuss and fly into a rage? Something isn't right about this. It's not just about fighting an edict. The old foxes noticed discrepancies. Zhuge Changfeng and Lung Wucheng knew even more, showing endless calm. The emperor has had enough. He's about to act. Imperial father, please calm down. I and Shuang are sisters. Even if we have the same husband, it'll be fine. Second brother doesn't fit Schwanger anyway. Please take your edict back and don't take your anger out on them. Yongning feared the emperor would do something to the couple. In his rage, the emperor wouldn't have it. Silence. I have had enough of Zhuo Fan's vile morals. Seriously wounding the delegation, destroying a prince's home, undermining my authority, in contempt of court, brash, arrogant, and violent. On such a blessed day, I wanted to make him my son-in-law, yet he refuses my edict. A criminal such as he is a plague on this land. In his rage, the emperor dumped one crime after another on Zhuo Fan's head. He had so many piled up that even 100 deaths would be too light a punishment. Zhuo Fan, Lung Wuchang, and Zhuge Changfeng were the calmest, having seen it all come. If one wanted someone dead, he'd just find the pretext to do it. The emperor can lift you, can sanctify you, but can also bury you, demonize you. It's all at the emperor's whim. If he wants you hanged, he'd find some excuse, don't you worry. Funny how it matched perfectly with Zhuo Fan, who had always called himself a demon. Finding faults couldn't be easier while the blunt Xuanrong looked on stumped. I say, why let him live if he's a criminal on death row? Shouldn't you be over and done with this demon the moment you found him? Zhuo Fan sneered. Your Majesty does not seem to hold me in any regard. Staying here is pointless. Let's go. Zhuo Fan left with the Luo clan bam. The emperor slammed the table. Humph, Zhuo Fan, you think so highly of yourself, showing contempt to me? You won't run away that easily. Oh, who, I wonder, in whole Tianyu has the power to stop me? Zhuo Fan mocked, pretentious, though everyone agreed inside. Zhuo Fan did have the power to back that claim. The emperor squinted and his face twisted with malice. There will always be someone better than you out there. Zhuo Fan, you are toxic. Seize him. With a bang, a red flash shot for Zhuo Fan, followed by a childish voice. Old coot, don't forget about the 6th grade ingredient. Chapter 404, Father and Son Fight. Chapter 404, Father and Son Fight. Whoosh! A tiny fist came out of nowhere. With enough power to crush mountains, Zhuo Fan, through a fist of his own, the bang rattled the ears of the guests. Zhuo Fan was forced back 100 meters before steadying, following the deep scar he made on the ground. He found that in his original place was a pint-sized smug figure. Everyone cried out. Where did he come from? How did he have the power to push back a monster like Zhuo Fan? The Chuanrong delegation was shaking. They gulped at the rosy-cheeked child. For all that's holy, is your land a freaking monster pen? It was bad enough that Zhuo Fan was a freak of nature. Now you have someone even younger? This doesn't make any sense. Xuanrong grumbled inside. Tianyu has way too many talents. As for the 7 houses, Zhuge Changfeng and the others knew of the freak raised in the imperial family's backyard. He was the most savage of the divine dragons. Invincible scamp Gu Santong. That old coot has been ready to take the little freak out from the very start. Zhuge Changfeng and Lung Wuchang's eyes flashed. Humph, that's right. I'm strong, Gu Santong stuck out his chest, tooted his horn, and froze. The guard said the emperor would give the signal to attack, but he didn't even think the target would turn out to be his godfather. He hesitated, his face changing constantly. Zhuo Fan grinned, having seen this coming. The emperor was frowning at the odd spectacle. What's going on with the little freak? Why did he stop? Gu Santong mumbled awkwardly. Zhuo Fan didn't let him finish. Flashing in his face with the red Qilin arm, Gu Santong blocked by instinct. Bam. Another shocking rumble spread, and the guests took to the air. The emperor was taken away by the guards. This was a battle between monsters. Sticking around any longer would pulverize one's bones. Gu Santong shot back 50 meters from a punch, raising everything in a kilometer's range. Nobody noticed Zhuo Fan taking advantage of the smoke and mirrors to send him a message. In a few moves, I'll fake defeat, and you should chase me. Gu Santong's eyes lit up, and he nodded out of the loop as he was. He nevertheless believed that Zhuo Fan would explain himself. So he straightened his back, flicked his hand, and launched Zhuo Fan into the air. Gu Santong jumped after him. The sky got littered with booms as the two traded blow for blow. Each clash ended with a pulse of power swiping the surroundings. They pulverized anything they touched, making sure no one, even try to get near. All they could do was crank their heads as the two darted to and fro, reducing the gaudy imperial palace to rubble the audience side. The two were dazzling gems of equal rarity and power. Only they could unleash such a spectacle. Others would have long since dropped dead. The Chuanrong were dumbstruck. The Chuanrong were tough, some say. The Chuanrong had mettle, said others. But witnessing these two experts of Tianyu fight, they came to know the true meaning of indomitable by contrast. Chuanrong's guts were too damn mushy, Tuoba Lufeng and Han Tianma sighed. If all of Tianyu was like this, it was best to go back and stay in bed. What invasion were they thinking of? The emperor looked at the two, receiving and dishing out blows with a bright stare. Zhuo Fan and Gu Santong looked the same, but Zhuo Fan only had a Qilin arm, the rest of his body falling short. Gu Santong, however, was bursting with power from every fiber in his being. It wasn't long before Zhuo Fan lost ground. Bam. Gu Santong's punch sent Zhuo Fan barreling into some lofty buildings. He had used the Qilin arm to block, but Gu Santong's power went through it and into his chest, forcing him to spit up blood. God damn it. That pipsqueak doesn't know how to hold back. I told him only a few blows, but he's still going strong. Zhuo Fan crawled out of the rubble, spatted some blood, and cursed with a heavy breath. Gu Santong was coming for another round. Ha ha ha, again. Take this. Again. Zhuo Fan squinted, not fond of taking any more of the kid's tough love. So he popped away with his right eye flashing golden goo. Santong hit nothing but the ruins, kicking up dust. Where's Dad? Gu Santong roamed his innocent eyes around. Zhuo Fan blinked next to Yin Shuang, hugged her, and flew away afraid that the rest of the people won't find it obvious that he lost. He shouted, "Blast it! I can't mess with that freak. Let's go." Gu Santong got on the spot. That was Zhuo Fan's signal for Act 2, so he played along. Stop him. Russell. A dozen Radiant Stage experts barred Zhuo Fan's way, glaring at him with fury. If Gu Santong failed, they wouldn't have shown themselves. But since Gu Santong was still going strong, in hot pursuit, they chose to earn some credit by buying time. Was it that easy, though, to hold back Zhuo Fan with a couple of shrimps? His right eye flashed golden again, and he teleported behind them as they turned around to chase. Blue wings spread out from Zhuo Fan's back. A single flap of them sent illusions at them. That's C Phantom Wing. Look out! One cried. Despite being too late, the blue image surrounded the experts. Their minds grew hazy, and they splat on the ground like pies. Zhuo Fan laughed and flapped his wings to gain more speed and flew away. Gu Santong stomped in fake anger. Humph, useless rabble. You've ruined my 6th grade ingredients. Once I am done capturing him, I'll take my anger out on you. Gu Santong shot after Zhuo Fan, angry on the outside, but giddy in his little heart. Dad, wait for me. The audience watched them go with a sigh in the end. It was Gu Santong who came out on top in that monster clash. But Gu Santong wouldn't get his paws on Zhuo Fan anytime soon, not with his guile. Humph. The emperor turned to the ex-Grand Imperial Palace, his anger growing. He flicked his hand at the dazed Luo clan. Prosperity Compound's Luo clan has failed to uphold its character, colluding with the savage Zhuo Fan. Seize them. Understood. Dozens of guards, with plenty of Radiant Stage experts in between, moved at once. Cackles resounded as 4 black masses drifted from the Luo clan to meet the Imperial guards. In but a dozen seconds, the guards lay on the ground, in pieces. Radiant Stage experts included. Hi. Luo clan doesn't have Steward Zhuo now, but we, the heroic Demon Quartet, will take his place. Ask the boss before messing with his dogs. You guys don't cut it. The 4 black masses hovered around the Luo clan with their creepy laughter. The emperor's face twitched. Luo Yunhai and the other side. The 4 pygmies were their elders. So wasn't their boss the Luo clan head? That saying about dogs didn't quite apply here, but everyone knew those pygmies weren't right in the head, so they just dropped it. Funnily enough, coming out in defense at the crucial time showed their loyalty creak. A metal screech announced the arrival of a black figure behind the emperor. Its hoarse voice said, "You dare act obnoxious before the emperor." Whoosh! A shadow shot for the 4 freaks like lightning. Chapter 4:05 for Demons vs. Shadow King. Chapter 405 for Demons vs. Shadow King. A groan came from the four black masses. What followed was cries of shock as a black chain came out, and they returned to their original form. Impossible. We'd phased out completely. How could you hit us? Violent Demon cried. The other pygmies were shouting as well. They couldn't believe their prized unity tactic could crumble so easily. The figure behind the Emperor turned solid, taking the shape of a 9-foot-tall armored man, and grabbed the incoming rattling chain. He took a bold step forth with a sharp look in his eye. You four little sh*ts. You may have been from the Empire's 3 guardian sects once, but it doesn't give you the right to do whatever you want. The 4th pillar, Shadow Guard's captain, Shadow King from Hell. Zhuge Changfeng muttered. Duguzhantian was also shocked. They were both part of the 4 pillars, but had only heard rumors of their secretive colleague. Today they found out how dreadful he really was. The 4 scheming demons could make mincemeat out of a 6th layer of Radiant Stage Expert. Even give a peak Radiant Stage Expert a run for his money, yet they were now pushed back in one move. Such a rare strength was something only the likes of Zhuofan and Gu Santong could display of the 4 pillars. Zhuge Changfeng relied on his infallible mind, Duguzhantian on his perfect war record, and Yun Xuanji on fate reading to take office. But Shadow King was the only one reaching the top with pure strength. The imperial family had laid low for so long. It had even kept their experts a secret. And now it revealed a true monster of Tianyu. If not for the balance of power in and outside of court, the imperial family would have long since had Tianyu under its iron fist, becoming the greatest clan the likes of Regent Estate and the houses had never seen. Huangpu Tianyuan squinted, his brow sweaty, looking at the emperor. The Chuanrong delegation was groaning. Tianyu just kept on popping one super expert after another. It wasn't weak at all. Elder brother, I can't accept it. Let's go again. Sly Demon stomped, glaring at the Shadow King. Violent Demon's eyes were savage, and he cursed. Let's do it. If we don't tear that bastard to pieces, we're not 4 scheming demons. They turned into 4 black masses again, and went for Shadow King. Shadow King snorted and turned himself into black smoke, as well the 5 black clouds got entangled, with one in the middle of the other 4, releasing bangs at every clash. But the center shadow kept letting out a rattling noise. The chain made its appearance again, striking the other 4 masses. Shadow King reformed, standing high and mighty over the blood-spewing 4 scheming demons. Elder brother, we can't do it. Let's bail. Wimp Demon wailed. Violent Demon didn't want to give up like this, but nodded in the end. He turned into black smoke and fled. Humph, the guy's too thick. We're out of here. Not to worry, young Master Luo. We're going to find Steward Zhua to help you. Wait, for scheming demons, weren't you going to rip me to pieces? Why are you running scared? Shadow King mocked. The fleeing for the 4 black masses stopped and mocked. Hey, what an imbecile. We are the Luo clan's elders. We no longer have anything to do with the demon scheming sect. As for our title, we can just do without it. It's not like you're going to take it, are ya? Vermin. Shadow King spat. The 4 clouds turned to the out-cold Imperial Guards and tore a Radiant Stage Expert apart. Then it spat at Shadow King. Rotten spade, you haven't heard the last of us. We'll let you go this time, but next time you'll be in pieces. The 4 scheming demons now vanished for good. Shadow King was outraged, his knuckles popping. He couldn't chase or leave the Emperor's side. Everyone saw the Shadow King beat the 4 demos back, but it still looked good in front of the crowd. They killed some Royal Radiant Stage Expert as a way of putting on a tough front and bragged about it before scampering. Only that Radiant Stage Expert had to suffer in the making of this scene. First his mind went on vacation from Zhuofan's Sea Phantom Wings. Then the 4 demons came to split him before vanishing away. The poor sod. If his soul would be drifting right now, he'd be cursing to high heavens. You sh*ts are angry with the Shadow King, so why take it out on little old me, who told him to be so weak? With Zhuofan lighting the fuse to blow out between the Luo clan and Imperial family, the latter came out on top. Besides its elders, the Luo clan's young master and Miss along with others had ended up in the imperial family's hands. The imperial guards assembled, having them surrounded. Luo Yunchang panicked, looking at the others. Luo Yunhai was still looking in Zhuo Fan's direction, finding it more than a little bit queer. Like he knew this day would come. So he calmed his jets and said, "Relax, it'll be fine." His calm inspired the others to do the same. Not even 20, yet the young master maintains a cool head in crucial moments. How could they lose theirs? The emperor nodded and sighed. Luo clan's young clan head has grown into a fine man. Duge Zhantian looked on with pride. The godfather and son were on opposite sides, but he had taught Luo Yunhai. The youth's calm attitude was a homage to his godfather's teaching. Imperial father, prosperity compounds. Luo clan has rebelled. They must be executed to appease the people. Please carry out their sentences. With everything under control, many showed their true faces, like the second prince barking at the Luo clan that lit a fire under the chubby's ass. Imperial father, the cause of today's disturbance falls on the Luo clan's steward alone. The others are innocent. Imperial father, you mustn't take it out on the innocents. Yes, Imperial father, it had nothing to do with the Luo clan's young master and miss. Your Majesty's heart knows no bounds. Please let them go. Yongning pleaded. The emperor eyed the two, then said, "Crown Prince, you are the heir to the throne. How would you handle it?" "Heir? Humph. Did you ever intend to give me anything?" He was still holding a grudge for what had happened back at the feast. But the crown prince did not let it show, hiding it behind a genial smile. "Imperial father, in my humble opinion, Luo clan steward, Zhuo Fan had indeed lied and cheated, pushing everyone around. But the regent of prosperity could not control him. Letting the Luo clan take the fall for his misconduct would be ill-advised." The fatty and Yongning sent looks of gratitude. While the emperor stared at him harder, getting his meaning, Crown Prince continued, "However, Zhuo Fan's vile attitude is due to the Luo clan's inadequate discipline. They do carry some of the blame. To my eyes, it is best to hold the Luo clan until Zhuo Fan is captured before handing out the sentence to them both." Crown Prince was candid, filled with reason and logical deductions. But to the old foxes out there, they could read between the lines. Taking the Luo clan hostage to draw Zhuo Fan out, it was a disgusting and degrading plan hidden behind a cleverly articulated sophistry. He was the spitting image of a true imperial family member, a vile act done in the name of justice. But the proposal was in tune with the emperor's thoughts. He let out a smile and nodded. "We will do as my son said. Guards, take the Luo clan away and watch them closely." Zhuge Changfeng laughed and sighed. He had seen through the emperor's ploy already. The two had been in contact for so many years, and he could read a little into the emperor's every action. The emperor had planned today from the start, as did its ending. He only asked others to speak out to cover up his involvement. He was in fact putting words in the crown prince's mouth, while also ending the tripartite stalemate. Zhuo Fan's ruckus at the imperial palace was big and small. Small since it only cost one man's life, and big as it impacted all the houses. He guessed the emperor was going to use the disruption of Tianyu as an excuse to cleanse the land. "Your Majesty, I didn't know you were even more impatient than me." Zhuge Changfeng laughed inside. The emperor looked at him as if in response to his thoughts, showing a snicker. "My dear Prime Minister, the game has only just begun." The emperor toasted to the distant Zhuge Changfeng, while the latter snorted and spilled his cup. "Your Majesty, I will not lose." Chapter 406, Dividing Spoils. Chapter 406, Dividing Spoils. "Your Majesty, could you leave the Luo clan for us to handle?" Lung Wuchang approached with a bow. Huangpu Tianyuan looked at him astonished, not understanding what his scheming steward was after. It was so obvious that with the Luo clan in custody, Zhuo Fan would come back to rescue them if he escaped Gu Santong's chase. In other words, whoever had the Luo clan would face Zhuo Fan. What happened at today's feast was too fast and shrouded in mystery. But wasn't taking the Luo clan inviting trouble? As the estate lord, he had to go out there and rein Lung Wuchang in. But the cool and wise look Lung Wuchang struck had him hesitate. Choosing to believe his steward, the emperor gave Lung Wuchang a hard look, not fully grasping his intent. "Sir Lung, Why should I give Luo clan to the Regent estate? Mind giving me a reason? Ah, Your Majesty, Regent estate has been the head of houses for the past millennium, settling any disputes among them. Now that there's an eighth house, it still falls under Regent estate's responsibility. With Luo clan's heinous crimes, it demands for Regent estate to help Your Majesty in capturing the traitor Zhuofan as a warning and example to the houses. Lung Wuchang was praising, but anyone with a brain could tell he was speaking terms with the emperor. We get rid of Zhuofan, and you give us the houses. Only then we fight over the throne. It was an obvious shot at getting the emperor to split the power, or you could just face the monster all by yourself. We won't give a hoot. Pa! Huangpu Tianyuan slapped his thigh, getting it as well. Facing Zhuofan was bummer, true, but using him to get the houses without the imperial family poking its nose in the process was a great play. Sir Lung's noggin sure works fast. That's our unwanted contriver. The emperor's eyes flashed, but his mouth curled. Since Regent estate has this intention, all right. They're yours to handle as you wish. Be sure to work with Gu Santong and catch the traitor. The other houses must combine their efforts as well. Use the demon purging decree at the right moment in tandem with Marshal Dugu. We obey Your Majesty's decree. As they all bowed, only Hell Valley, Pill King Hall, and Merry Woods looked happy for their boss, taking the lead again. Veiled Dragon Pavilion, Drifting Flowers edifices, and Sword Marquis' abode were filled with bitterness. Zhuofan was their ally who all of them had to attack, forced into a corner. Now that the Regent estate got the kill order for Zhuofan, the six houses had to obey through this plan. It would fulfill its own agenda in swallowing the houses. Troubled times awaited these three allies. The emperor's cold. I swept them all. I have since lost the mood to celebrate. You are dismissed. With an ashen face, surrounded by guards and Shadow King, he left. Yoning wanted to plead for the Luo clan some more, but her father's stone-cold look scared her. What no one noticed was the faint evil twitch in his mouth, just as he turned, "Congratulations, Your Majesty." It all went smoothly. I'd never dreamed that that sly and conniving Zhuofan would be routed so easily. Shadow King bowed after some distance, sending this message to the emperor. The emperor laughed, but then a flicker of doubt came upon his brow. It has been easy, perhaps too easy, making me uneasy. Besides the matter with Yongning, I had many more tricks ready, but he took the first bait instead. It baffles me how a level-headed man like him fell so easily. Your Majesty must be overthinking things. In my opinion, it is not Yongning who irritated him, but what happened to Yin Xuan. Your Majesty, at the esoteric debate, he went berserk over a girl. I've heard that Miss Yun Xuang shares that girl's qualities. That makes it more likely that he flipped because of her. The emperor nodded. I hope so, but this only leads to even more questions. Why did the second prince propose marriage with a holy maiden, inciting Zhuofan? It's too convenient. It's not my place to say, but the second prince is narrow-minded and petty. Zhuofan and holy maiden ruined his home, so he came up with this proposal just to spite him. He used Your Majesty's name to push him around. As any child, he was the first to turn to his father whenever he got the boot. The emperor paused, then nodded. Haha, indeed. That's his style, all right. Though he helped me instead. But I have to change this trait about him, lest he invites trouble. Your Majesty is wise. Shadow King bowed. The emperor continued. Yet, out of my predictions, Regent estate volunteered to take charge in fighting Zhuofan. I planned on letting those dogs bite at each other until they couldn't move, but stepping in was in fact an even better outcome. Your Majesty, this is even easier to understand. Lung Wuchang is no fool, and with Zhuofan becoming the center of this chaos, the public enemy number one, he felt something was off and didn't want to be passive. Doesn't he want what Your Majesty wants, to lead the seven houses? It will be great for the Regent Estate's campaign to expand its power. Yes, Lung Wuchang was right in his assumption. But does he think I'll just let him? Humph, we'll just see whose campaign is faster, mine or his. The emperor's eyes flashed, walking on with Shadow King. Meanwhile, Lung Wuchang and Huangpu Tianyuan took the Luo clan off the Imperial Guard's hands and left the Imperial Palace. Estate Lord, this chance comes with risks. We need to act quickly, or by the time the Imperial family roots out all the spies from court, he will turn on us. Lung Wuchang spoke gravely. Huangpu Tianyuan nodded. Sir Lung, you've done well. Although the Emperor plans to have both of us exhausted, if we don't take this chance, he will swallow us all sooner or later. Now is the time to act when the Imperial family is too busy. Yeah, since we're dealing with Zhuo Fan, we can't threaten the Imperial family either. This is the first time in the history of Tianyu that neither side has to watch for the other, but also the most dangerous. If we are late in uniting the houses, the Imperial family will march all over us. Lung Wuchang sighed. Life or death, winner or loser, it all rests on what we do in this period. Such a rare opportunity, fraught with destruction, must be taken with utmost caution. Sir Lung, Huangpu Tianyuan turned heavy. Did the meeting go smoothly? No worries. The kid has lost faith in the second generation, deciding to side with us. At the right moment, he'll buy us time. Lung Wuchang nodded. Huangpu Tianyuan eased up, eyes flashing with savagery. Regent Estate's long-cherished wish would soon come to a head. Win or lose, this was it. Zhuge Changfeng had the Chuanrong delegation taken back to the garrison, but on their way there, he was plagued with worry. Prime Minister, sir, what is it? Tuobo Lufeng asked. Zhuge Changfeng took a long time to respond. What happened today is because the geezer made it happen, forcing Zhuo Fan to flee. But what made the geezer act so soon? Did he prepare everything? Prime Minister, sir, don't overthink it. The more chaos there is, the better, making it easier for us to invade. Tobo Lufeng grinned. Zhuge Changfeng nodded, but then his smile slipped. His heart seized, his brow furrowed. Why did the old coot choose this moment to act when the Chuanrong delegation was present? Is it? Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. No, it can't be. I must be jumping to conclusions. No matter what, with the nation in chaos, everyone will move and everything will go according to plan. Old man, you want to use chaos for yourself, but did you think you're the only one with that idea? You won't get to rule these lands. Zhuge Changfeng laughed. Whoosh! 100 miles out of Imperial capital, Zhuo Fan was hugging Yun Shuang's soft, exquisite, and perky body as he flashed across the blue sky. Yun Shuang huddled in his chest, restless and blushing. She was still out of it from Zhuo Fan's declaration of love for her, that he was now fighting the Empire for this reason. For a naive girl, it was the most romantic thing in the world, her heart beating like crazy. Although Yun clan answered requests in a neutral way, it was their responsibility to help the people, while Zhuo Fan was a bad boy through and through. These two had absolutely nothing in common, yet for some odd reason, she felt her pure heart influenced by that repulsive and dashing bastard. She couldn't get him out of her mind. Whoosh! This time in a flash of red, Goose Santong approached from behind. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.